All right, good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is Brian Johnson. I am the city manager here at Peachtree Corners. I want to welcome you here tonight to City Hall, our council chambers here, to talk about something that's very important. And it's good to see people who are civically active and want to become educated on this issue and to help provide feedback to the members of City Council. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by my Chief Marshal, Chief Restrepo, and we are going to have a lot of information that we're going to put out. And at the end of it, I will open the floor for anybody who wants to ask a question, voice a comment, concern. I'll stay here as long as all of you want to stay here, but I'm going to try to get through our part first so that we're all kind of on the same playing field. So tonight, what I want to do is the purpose of it is really to continue the journey of community dialogue about public safety in this community after the first meeting that we had, the kickoff meeting to this back in May. So tonight, I'm going to present some new information, talk a little bit about what we've learned since that meeting, some feedback we've got from the community. We're going to, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. Now, again, it's really important for me to say that this community dialogue is a journey that I have no idea when the end is, meaning there is no imminent decision by City Council about this issue. This is about getting information to you so you can become educated and then you can provide feedback to them. It's their job to decide how public safety is provided here. So I just want everybody here to know tonight that there is not anything on an agenda. There's no imminent vote. Council has not considered this issue, period, plain and simple. Okay, well, we can get to that at the end if you want to say that, but there is no, this is not on any agenda in the future at all, not even my decision when it does get pulled. So it takes 4 of the 7 to decide that anyway. But that's really important because, again, this is not imminent action. This is about educating. This is about all of us getting to the same point and then hearing your feedback. All right, one last thing about that is the first meeting, I really tried to lay out the best I can information without providing my perspective on it. Meaning, there were some things that you could just laid some information out there and I didn't provide context because I was trying to just do that. Tonight, I am going to be presenting to you this information from the perspective of what I feel is a need here. But I want to remind all of you that, myself, Chief Restrepo, all the players involved in public safety operationally are not policymakers. We're instruments of policy. The decision of whether or who provides public safety here in the city is not my decision. It's the decision of the 7 members of City Council. So any of the information I'm putting out is, again, from the perspective of just me saying this based on what I know is, what things would look like if we did X, Y, or Z. All right, so let's get into it. But the first thing I do want to do is talk to you about the first survey that went out after the kickoff meeting. And there have been, some of you may have filled it out, and I'm glad you did. We did what we asked, but I made an error in judgment in that on a survey, I did not have a professional look at the survey before we did it. And why that matters is the survey questions were a little bit too simple, such that when we saw more than 60% of the people who filled out the survey said that they hadn't done any due diligence before they filled it out, which is one problem because that meant that the survey questions themselves were the only education that they were receiving on it. Second error we made is we thought that it would be nice to know the demographics of who was filling it out. If, people who are renters versus owners, do they look at this differently? Age bracket, that got a lot of blowback on people didn't want to give their demographic information. So we started seeing people start the survey and then stop it because they didn't want to do that. And then we started to receive via all sorts of different channels suggestions on how we could change and improve the survey. So after about 3.5 weeks, seeing those things in the middle there that were, words of caution on the results, I made the decision to stop that survey, wait till this meeting, have a professional help with the survey, and then move forward with, call it Survey 2.0. I also want to make sure that you all understand that surveys are important vehicles to get information to, in this case, City Council, but it's not the only thing. One of the biggest challenges nowadays is how do you get to the most people and get them educated? And a survey is just one tool. Attending the meeting tonight is another tool. But it is an important tool and we need to have one out there. And so I just wanted to let you know, the results. We had 368 respondents in that 3.5 weeks. Obviously, it was predominantly not in favor, but that it's hard to know if it was statistically significant of a sample size when and where they were coming from. So I wanted to, for those who did, and there's been talk about what's the results of the survey. That's the boiled down version of the results. Now, this next one, again, we'll make sure that somebody who does this for a living weighs in on those questions and makes sure that they're both clear, and we'll work harder on trying to get as many different people, cross sections of the city that to fill out the survey. Last thing before we get into data is, again, we're talking about a service provided by, a governmental entity. And I want to be clear up front, nothing about what we're going to talk about tonight is any kind of a testament to Gwinnett County Police Department. I can start by saying I've been the city manager here for 10 years, and of all the complaints I've received about about police, not one of them have been about an interaction that somebody had with an individual officer. None of them have been like, oh, I had a bad exchange, they were unprofessional. Never had those type of complaints. The complaints we get are more structural and strategic and higher level than Gwinnett PD. So I just want to be clear that, some of this can, if you look at it and you receive it wrong, could be like, oh, they're weighing in on Gwinnett PD. We're not. Gwinnett is a great agency. They have professionals. They're, highly trained. It's not the individual officers that we're having to consider. It's the overall service. So I just want to be clear about that. All right. How many of you were here, a show of hands real quick, at the kickoff meeting in May? All right, a lot of you. Good. But just bear with me for about 2 minutes, because for those who haven't, I do need to clarify a few things for those who aren't. Let me start by saying City was created 2013 under this concept of City Light. The concept was our charter, the city's constitution, if you will, had a limitation on services in which it actually forbid the city from providing more than 3 specific services, police not being one of them. And you can see that in 2017, because of that very fact, meaning if Gwinnett had informed the city at its early, infancy, you know what, we've reconsidered, we're no longer wanting to provide police to you, our first charter would have actually prevented the city from providing it itself. And the state saw that as a problem because it would have been mayor and council being like, well, if Gwinnett's not going to provide it, who's going to provide it? Our charter prevents us from providing it. And the state says no. There's only one type of city in Georgia, and that's a home rule municipality, meaning all the services provided inside of an incorporated city are the responsibility of city council. Now, they can make the decision on, hey, we want to outsource it, but that's what's changed. So I just want, for those who do remember the city light at the time, it was talked about when this, contemplation of whether to get incorporated, it had not been weighed in on by the state. But the state since then has said, no, you're responsible for everything in the city. And so that's an important point for those who are like, wait, that wasn't one of the 3 services, police. Well, it is, and it's city council's responsibility. So, as a result, city council has to, decide how it's provided. Is it being provided properly? And if there are any complaints about it, to look into it. If there's any, issues with the service delivery, it's their responsibility. It's important to note that, majority of the cities in Georgia, nearly 80% of the cities in Georgia have their own city police department because of the fact that it's city council's responsibility and they look into it. So we're in the minority now of having an IGA. There are others that do, but we are in the minority when it comes to cities in Georgia. Just wanted to make sure you understood that. As you look at it, so city council is looking at this issue, and we really have 4 options. They do. One is the current service the way it is, which, as a reminder, is a service that was in existence, meaning Gwinnett County had a police district, and it was allowing incorporated cities like Sugar Hill, for instance, Beaufort, for instance, to continue to get police service from Gwinnett in exchange for allowing Gwinnett to charge a special police millage. That means that when city council, in our case, our mayor and council said, yes, let's do that, we conformed to the structure that Gwinnett had in place already. So the city became a part of an existing police district. It wasn't a negotiated type of deal. It was, here's the terms, and do you want in or not? That's our current arrangement. There theoretically are two other ones beyond creating a police department for the city. One would be to approach Gwinnett and say, we don't want to be part of the policing district along with 8 other municipalities. We want to negotiate a one-on-one deal with you to provide it, almost like a, not to compare it to solid waste collection, but like we would have for, solid waste. We negotiated terms with Waste Management, and then they provide it directly, and it's between us and them versus a much bigger, more complicated arrangement. That is one option. And the other one is obviously the other countywide law enforcement entity, and that's the sheriff, which would be similar to with Gwinnett, but it would be with the sheriff, and not sure why you would just switch organizations like that and get the same thing. The key here is the only thing you see on there in which city council has control of all of it is if there's a city police department. And control is an important point you'll see here shortly. We're not alone in having this discussion. There are a lot of cities that have gone through this recently. You'll see some of those newly formed cities that have formed since 2005 when Sandy Springs kind of started this movement. We're in the minority as far as cities that do not have their own. Again, nearly 80% of them in Georgia do. So this conversation we're having, Tucker's having it right now too, is a common one. It may result in no change, but it's a common discussion to have, and wanted to make sure you knew that. All right, so touched on this a little bit. Our current arrangement then with Gwinnett is with an intergovernmental agreement, similar to, again, what Gwinnett has with 8 other municipalities in Gwinnett, and that is we allow them to charge a special police millage rate. In return, they provide police service inside the city. A couple of key things about that. One is, it's 2.9 mils. So when you see your property tax bill, there will be a line item for police millage. The 2.9 mils, if we use our tax digest from last year, generated about $9.4 million for Gwinnett. When you add court revenue, Gwinnett PD is pulling about $11 million or so from Peachtree Corners between court and property tax. So you could say that essentially Peachtree Corners is paying about $11 million for police service. The other thing is the IGA stipulates that Gwinnett provides service to us in the exact same level that they provide everywhere else in the county, to unincorporated areas, to cities like, Sugar Hill or Beaufort. It's the same, both good and bad. I mean, good is Gwinnett's saying we're giving you the best. We're doing the best for everybody. You're not different. You're not getting any less. You're not getting any more. You're getting the same. Downside is it's not customizable because they have a massive area. Here's the area that they've got to patrol. The map on the left, all the blue, is Gwinnett County's police district responsibilities. The map on the right is how they break that down into police districts. You can see over there where it says the word West, we're in the West Precinct. West Precinct looks like this. That map right there is showing all of the color is West Precinct. The blue, which is on the other side of I-85, is one of the two sectors, and then the other two are what we oftentimes will just call the Peachtree Corner zone. And so they break it into essentially half. And you see on there a couple things that are important. You see their strength right now, what they've been authorized to have. They could have as many as 115. They're currently at 73. It's difficult, but that's to hire and retain in a lot of different occupations, but certainly law enforcement is one of the most challenging. And when you break that down, and I'll show you in a second some of the crime, but there is a majority of the crime happens outside of our city limits, which means that officers assigned to Peachtree Corners initially at the beginning of a shift will oftentimes need to get dispatched to areas outside of our city limits because that's where the calls for service are. Gwinnett doesn't get to decide that. They have to answer calls for service, and crime is where crime is. So, no blame there, but the results are what they are, and that is, we have officers that leave, and there have been instances where we've had no officers inside of the city at one time because they're answering calls elsewhere. This is just showing, again, the challenge of trying to recruit and retain. The roster on the left is what they were. West Precinct was in March of this year, and they're down to, as of August. It's hard, and so they're having to patrol with those limited resources, and it's difficult. Now, Well, the purpose of showing that is not for you to read. You wouldn't know what, that's just names of people. That's just to show that that's actually, we didn't make it up.
But your math's wrong. Your math is wrong. Look at the number.
Okay, okay. All right. So why we are starting to, let's talk about crime location for a second. If you consider crime as the barbarians at our gates, where crime happens, this is a map of West Precinct, of every part of West Precinct except our city limits. That's where crime is occurring. And so that heat map is showing, the more yellow it gets, the hotter it is, the more crime, nodes of crime. And that's right outside our city limits, which is, of course, of concern because when you have it close, you have this. And this is where you start getting into, the migration of it. And, we certainly are not immune to having some of our own, but that is plugging in the addresses of all the crime that has happened in 2024. So looking at just Peachtree Corners for a second, a couple things of note here. One is that really bright yellow. That's about the Target, Dick's Sporting Goods, Publix area. Why it's so high there is you've got a lot of shoplifting there because this is all crime. So it's both crimes against persons and crimes against property. You have a lot of entering autos in the big parking lot there, which is why that one's pretty bright. Just to the left of it, you'll see around the, Jimmy Carter, PIB area, which is another problem area. And right below the 112 is Town Center Forum. And that's there because, again, a lot of shoplifting at the stores, some, defacing of property at the town center, some fights there, that type of thing. But if you really look at that, if you remove the Town Center Forum for a second, we are, to a degree, a tale of two cities. We have one area of the city that does not have, especially if you remove the Town Center Forum, have a lot of crime. And that's great, but got to understand that city council is responsible for the entirety of the city, so not just an area. And so when people are like, oh, we don't have a crime problem, depending on how you define the area that there's not a crime problem, when you are responsible for the entirety of a city, I'm not sure that saying there's not a crime problem is fair when you see that map. That's the challenge that mayor and council have when it comes to making a decision of what is the best. A couple other tables here. This is the stats from January, or really all of 2024 through this year, or July of this year. And, thankfully, our violent crime is not high, but, it is exactly right. But we do have a lot of property crime here. And, some of you have seen it, some of you have been, a victim of it. But criminals know where value is, and they'll oftentimes go where they believe that there's things of value, and there won't be, or there's the inability to have the police presence to scare them away, or the resources to do something about it when it does happen. Again, that's the challenge of when you have lack of resources. You can see the row at the very bottom is the percentage of the crime that's happening, of those crimes happening outside the city. Unfortunately, the ones against people, the assaults, rapes, robberies, homicides, they require a lot of police resources to work those too. So unfortunately, when you get called outside the city to work one of those, you're going to be gone for a long time because those calls are a lot harder or a lot more time consuming to work than, petty larceny or something. So that's, that's telling on there just because that's part of the reason why you have, officers assigned to Peachtree Corners that have to leave and are not here for periods of time because they're working some of those cases that occur outside. This one is just showing a little bit of us in comparison to other area municipalities. That one's sorted by the right column of total crimes. Certainly higher than we would like. Glad it's not the highest. Would love to be the lowest, but we're there. We have some room for improvement. And, we've got to consider what's coming. Are we facing more? Do we have enough resources to make that number go down? But that's how we compare to, the area municipalities. Last thing too is when it comes to kind of knowledge of where crime's happening and what, we only get reported 9 of the 44 categories that the FBI uses for crime. And so in some cases, there's, drug, what are some of these other ones? Simple assault battery, where we don't know of those 5,965 assault and batteries happened inside of Peachtree Corners or not. It's not reported to us. It could be 0, but we only get reported those 9 that are in green. So that's all we have to work with when it comes to knowing what crime is actually happening in our city limits. So it can be a limitation sometimes on our consideration. So let me then run you through some chronologically how we got here today. Why are we even talking today? It, of course, usually oftentimes starts with complaints. And over a number of years, we started getting a little bit more complaints in 3 kind of main areas. One is the understaffing that Gwinnett has results oftentimes in long response times because there's not officers available or they're having to come from parts that are, significantly far from the reported incident. And so we started getting complaints about that, long response times, key areas of the city that we're having, especially at nighttime, that we're having consistent criminal acts, the Forum, Town Center now, Jones Bridge Park's the big one. Just the inability to have presence patrols there because you're just, they're reacting to just call after call after call. So that was some of the complaints we got on the understaffing. We then, kind of plays into the same thing. Officers, when they leave the city, we suffer a little bit on 2 things. One, you don't have an officer, the presence that an officer brings wherever he or she is at. And then if they are called back or called to the city, it takes them longer. And so leaving the city or having to can sometimes, result in, again, long periods of time before help comes. And then kind of one of the ones that hit home a little bit closer to us is the county will not enforce our local ordinances. So we've had instances in which we have a local ordinance, let's say noise ordinance. Chattahoochee Station a couple years ago had somebody who found a loophole in our code on the restriction against renting property for less than 30 days. And they rented a backyard pool because we didn't refer to the exterior of the, and so all of a sudden, one day, a crush of cars rolled into this neighborhood and they were gonna have a big pool party and a DJ and all this kind of stuff in a residential neighborhood. Police were called, went out there, and they're like, you gotta do something about it. And they're like, well, we don't enforce, that's a local ordinance, we can't enforce it. So it is, Okay, well, the proper word would be won't, not can't, but won't. And so,
County police can enforce a city ordinance? They can't do that.
yes, all right, let's not get off track here until the end, all right? Let's not, we can do that at the end. But so after those complaints started coming in, the fact that there was an underlap, that we didn't have somebody that could enforce the local ordinance like we wanted, council started looking at this and ask me and staff, what else can we do to help with this resource drain and everything, and the decision was made to create city marshals. And the purpose was to, A, enforce local code, act as a force multiplier for Gwinnett PD, to be there to support them, to enhance something they may ask us to help with, to maybe plug in holes where there's staffing issues, that they're having, and increase, law enforcement visibility in the community, which can, sometimes be a deterrent. We actually staffed it with 3 previous Gwinnett County police officers, all post-certified, and Chief Restrepo himself is the most recent West Precinct commander prior to Major Griffin. So we got 3 really good professionals to come here, and then we made some technology investments. We invested in a lot of flock license plate reader cameras, video cameras, Fusus platform to tie these things together, created a real-time crime center so that our guys can go into one room and pull all this up. We have 500 cameras in the city now, and an incredible resource when you're trying to track vehicles or look into something, which Gwinnett PD has access to. But we created we made those investments with the understanding that it would end up helping close that gap. And so that's when I hired Chief Restrepo, and I'm going to turn it over to him and let him talk about kind of his experience as the marshal's office was created, and what kind of got us here from there.
Good evening, everyone. What you're seeing up here, and hopefully you could read some of it. If not, I'll go ahead and try to help you along with that you can't see. So the heartbeat to any police department are the things that you see up there. Those are your CAD, which for those that don't know, that's your computer-aided dispatch. So every time you contact 911, there's an operator on the other side. They grab that and they start entering information, trying to find out the location of them. In some instances, obviously with cell phones, they're able to get those in kind of real-time situation, depending if there's a rapid SOS system. So as the calls are coming in, there's just a lot of information that's coming in very quickly. And so the radio operators and all that have to process all those things, right? So that's CAD, and essentially. It documents essentially the whole call from start to finish. And then your next item that's up there is your records management systems. That's your RMS system that we say. We have a lot of acronyms in police work. That's just the way it is. Bear with me. But that's what the report that's documented, right? If they could go 2 ways, depending on the incident, they could make small notations in the CAD system, said, hey, we went with the complainant, they didn't wish to prosecute, put some notes in there, and it's there as a record to be able to be looked at historically and searched at another time. Then the brunt of a lot of the records management system is documenting all the incidents. But information is only as good as how you get it and what you do with it, right? So there is in law enforcement now a big thing about real-time crime, situational awareness, all those things. So the quicker we could get information, the quicker we could process it, analyze it, and move forward with it, the better off we'll be. So that's for those 2. So I say that when I was the major at West Precinct, we had someone there. At the time, it was actually Henry Mesa there to the left. He worked in my back office, and his sole duty was just to crunch numbers. He'd get in the morning, I'd walk in the back office, and I said, Henry, what do we got? Hey, we had this many entering orders, we had this. I said, okay, let's start plotting and let's start doing something. Pass that information on to the officers. Let the officers go into those areas, look for those things. If we had a description, he's looking for a tag. He's doing all these things, right? And then you take that information and you use data-driven policing, right? It's called cops on dots. Where you have your problems, you put police officers, right? So that's where it is, right? And then you use that to strategize police and all those different things. So that's that. All right, so I had a meeting when we first started the marshal's office. I met with Chief McClure, and at the time, Deputy Chief Higginbotham. And I met with them, and I basically kind of laid out the roadmap of what we thought or how we could greatly benefit our resources together to basically, in another word, crush crime. And at the conclusion of that meeting, frankly, the optimism kind of came down because I was kind of told, I don't know the way we're going to do that. We have to go ask here. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. So I came back. I talked to Brian. I said, hey, Brian, I wanted to let you know there's some good things that came out of the meeting, but there's also some potential roadblocks that we're going to have to get through. So as cops, we try to work together as best we can, but obviously there's other layers as you go up in the government, decision makers, policy makers, and all those things. So ultimately what we ended up doing, because it's such a serious scenario, and I'll just give you a scenario, like right now, if I'm not listening to the radio in my ear, I don't know what's going on in the city. That's a big problem, especially if we're supposed to be a force multiplier and be able to show up. So I could literally be in the city, they get some serious call, maybe the calls are pending, and I want to jump in and go, hey, they're pending 10 calls, there's 3 of us, why don't we jump in, we'll go grab that accident, we'll go answer that burglary, we'll do what we truly wanted to do. Well, that was met with a little bit of resistance, and so as that goes, I came to Brian. Brian went ahead, spoke to council, mayor, and we weren't the only city that were experiencing this. Obviously, Sugar Hill, similar to us, they have a marshal's office. So they too recognize the safety issues, the limitations that it was putting on us, essentially being as efficient as possible as we could to help Gwinnett County and ultimately help the residents of Peachtree Corners. So these drafted the letters, and just so you know, this whole presentation will be online at a later time. You'll be able to, actually I encourage you to go through it, read it top to bottom, all those things, and please give us your feedback. But on the left of what you're looking for is basically us requesting the things that I had just discussed, so we could be as efficient as we possibly could. And then it went, and of course it takes a little while, and then we received, a response on the ride. And essentially, it was a denial, formal denial from the county commission, basically telling us that, unfortunately, they weren't going to be able to do what we were asking to do. So based on that, I will say you have some really good crime fighters in the 3 that you have. We went ahead and I'm sorry. Marshals have not been great. Okay. So even though we still have favors that we can bring in, people that we can talk to. I mean, we're going to scrounge. That's anyone that knows me. If I hear on the radio, I'll jot down, I'll shoot a text. I'll say to them, hey, what was that call? And then the next day, that night, we're calling in, we're doing open records requests. So initially, as a part of the initial meeting, there was a problem, is I could call to the precinct and get a report pretty quickly. Well, after that meeting, we were told that we needed to essentially get in the queue line with everyone else. So if I had a request as a police and we're trying to solve crime and do something, we're actually going to be put in a queue. So if I was the 250th person asking for something, that's how long I have to wait until I can get that as a law enforcement officer. You can see where that could be a problem.
All right, so this slide is to just put into context that we created the marshal's office and started to run into some of the, roadblocks on communication that are kind of handcuffing our marshals a little bit from being as effective as they can be. And so as we're thinking about what can we do to improve this, part of my job is to make sure that council has options. And what I needed to determine is a city police department even an option? Because if it was, it would have been like $100 million to have it, then, that for all intents and purposes would have been, that's not an option. And so that's why a police study was commissioned, is to have a third party come in and look and tell us whether or not it's feasible, what size would be the optimal. And so, but that's the reason why that was, the study was commissioned, is just because of some of the, even current collaboration challenges that we have.
So getting to the middle point, when I was the major here, one of the big things that we did in Peachtree Corners was really set up a very premier crime-fighting technology ecosystem, if you will. The flock cameras, all that. I mean, I'll take you back years to where, unfortunately, someone lost their life at the Quick Trip. I got the phone call at the house, and I was able to find out who that suspect was. It was probably about 10 minutes. The car, everything. We passed it on. We passed it on to detectives. Henry was there at the time. He was on my CRT team. He was tracking the car down in Clayton County. We were working, obviously, with the PD. They had a Cal helicopter in the air. When you get all this information together, it's powerful stuff. It really is. But when there's breaks or there's a silo effect, that greatly is not a good thing, is what I'm saying. Right now in law enforcement, the biggest thing, if you go into Florida right now, there's a sheriff's department where they have 5 different agencies. They all sit in the same room. They're watching the command center. They're exchanging information in real time, and they're crushing crime. And that's the way it should be. So just to give you a little context, if the information's being shared and all that, amazing things can be done. But I say that so when we were there, we initially were getting the feeds from the DOT cameras, so super helpful. We can go back, we can get stuff. And then somewhere along the line, we weren't. And so that was problematic. So again, we're reciprocating. We give everything as much as we have to them. And then we started having a problem where they kind of scaled back. And then lastly, as of recent, I learned, and I spoke to someone at Gwinnett about it, is I saw an article where Gwinnett had entered into somewhat of an agreement with the CIDs where they were going to pay a portion of what they are. The city spends a lot of money putting up these flock cameras and all these other things. And it seems like these CIDs have been reimbursed, but there's not been something our way. So just to kind of give a little context of some of the barriers and some of the things that we have come across. It's a community improvement district. So there's like Sugarloaf CID, there's Gateway 85. So businesses commercially pay an extra tax, and they use things to beautify, put extra security, cameras, and everything for those areas, and because they're giving that tax money to do those type of improvements in those areas. We have a partial portion of the city in Gateway 85, CID. So obviously, as Brian had said, we took it. So after we started discussing all these things, it just came, Brian said, you know what, we're responsible as staff, me as the main guy for public safety. He says, I think maybe we need to get some professionals that have done this, that go out and assess police actually cities, because they actually assess existing police departments. They do a gamut of things, but this particular company been along a very long time. They've been recommended by the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and we basically entered into a contract with them. And they came, we met with them, we introduced them. Obviously, for them to put all this information together, we had to introduce them, obviously, to Gwinnett, open records request, all these things. So big data dump of information, and then they started doing what statisticians do. They get behind the computers, they start doing formulas, and they start putting things together. And by the end of that report, and I'll just kind of go for the sake of time, based on CPM's detailed assessment of Peachtree Corners community and policing dynamics, we believe that the community is well positioned to pursue efforts and operate its own police department.
And the guidance to them was not, we have a budget, what would a police department look like? It was, they sat down with Gwinnett, got all the data from Gwinnett, looked at calls for service, and said, if you wanted to have an optimal, resourced police department, here's what it would look like. And that's what Chief Restrepo is going to go through and show you.
Sure. All right, so they came back with a number of 55 sworn, and I believe at the meeting, as we started looking and really crunching numbers, now obviously they came in a bit high because that's what they do. They're not going to underestimate and underdeliver, so they estimated pretty high. We took those numbers. We looked at some of the top agencies in the state, mostly Metro Atlanta. We looked at Gwinnett, we looked at Sandy Springs, we looked at Dunwoody, comparable areas, both demographically and population-wise. And we said, can we slim this down a bit? So, and I think I said this at the other meeting, I took 2 traffic cars that they recommended away. So this went from 55 sworn to 52 sworn. So just to be obviously good stewards with taxpayer money, I said this wouldn't make a huge effect, but certainly be able to run the agency lean and well positioned. And so that's what we came up to, 52 sworn with a support of 13 for a total of 65. And if you look there, basically this is how it compares. Now, on the right, this is the same rosters that I used. One is a 2023 and 2024 because that's kind of the information. So understand that information through the FBI on a lot of things, you have to wait a full calendar year for that stuff to come together. And so when we were doing this in kind of 2023, 2024, we had to draw a line in the sand, and that was basically, let's get rosters for 2023. We asked for updated ones, and we went through every day on each shift. There's 2 rosters, and I kind of went through, and equaled out kind of what the city was getting. And so what you see there was a roster that had 3 officers assigned initially, and then the lower one 4. And so under the recommendation of us, to the left is what you would see, and on average that would be 7 to 8 officers, as you can see. So also, obviously, time has changed. We looked at more, and as of recently, I pulled these numbers, and as you can see, there's a 4, 5, 4, 3, as far as that's concerned. And these are rosters. The first is Alpha Bravo. Those are both day watch shifts, and then the 3rd and 4th are overnight shifts. So that's basically all the way to the right there. On that particular night, they had only 3 officers assigned to Peachtree Corners for the beginning of the shift. This map just kind of shows you. A lot of times they'll say PTC side, and PTC side basically means other side of I-85. But I also want to clarify that a lot of the areas, and you saw on the heat map, aren't Peachtree Corners. So if you look at the yellow, that's right here, that's 121 zone and 114, and then 113 partially shared, but it's with the city of Berkeley Lake. So that's that. And then, of course, if the city decided to move forward, this is exactly what, obviously, a city police department would be responsible for. They would not basically cross Buford Highway, cross 85, and make their way into other portions of unincorporated Gwinnett, because they would be strictly, obviously, in the city. So this is a little bit further of a breakdown, just so you could see, obviously, it's got some more topography, some more colors and whatnot, and I actually put that in there. 121 and 114 not being PTC. Those are the numbers that they assigned to those particular zones. And then this is a breakdown of what the sectors would look like if the police department were to be formed. And in that you would see. Now, I put 232 on average, but what we would use is data. So if we had a rash of break-ins in Sector 20, why would I put 3 officers in Sector 10? I would move them around. Based on the data that we're getting daily, we would deploy the police in precision form to go out to these areas, look for the crime, and do those things. So that's that. All right, so next. There has been some conversations where I believe everybody was like, well, what happened to all the specialized units? What'll happen to the K-9? What'll happen to DUI? What'll happen to SWAT? So this is a breakdown. You may not be able to read it, but again, this will be available before. But for instance, Norcross, Duluth, Suwanee, Lawrenceville being the owner, well, you could definitely say they're a legacy agency. They've been in existence for over 200 years, and they're able to perform all the duties of their police departments and have been for years. And how they do that, there's different ways. Just so know, everyone, to be very clear, is contractually, Gwinnett would still provide SWAT, EOD, which is EOD, yes, the bomb squad in other terms. and then the EMA. So that would not change. So if we had a scenario where we needed a big tactical response, Gwinnett would still come. There are instances where sometimes maybe you call Gwinnett, you maybe give them the specifics, and maybe they go, well, maybe this, maybe that. So there's times when I know Norcross called GSP and all those things. So there are mechanisms, even if that, but contractually they would be responsible. Now some of these other things like a special victims unit, a robbery, a homicide unit, in big departments, yes, they're very compartmentalized and they do all those things. In smaller agencies, they break those down into persons crimes and property crimes. In the proposal, I had put one officer specifically for this reason on the Gwinnett Metro Task Force. And that's a task force that's been put together by the sheriff's office. And within there, they basically get probably about almost everything covered. Drugs, prostitution, anything you could think of, gangs, gambling, whatever, they do it all. So you wouldn't. And it would be to bear a lot because that one guy goes to work every day. They go, hey, what do we got going on today? Hey, I got a big case in Peachtree Corners. Everybody pony up, get your stuff together. We're gonna go hit a search warrant, or we're gonna go do some surveillance, we're gonna go do some things, and out they go. And I think recently, matter of fact, I think I showed Henry a big case they just worked, multi-county, and did a big fentanyl, big bust in multiple counties. So they're definitely effective. So, and then the last point on that slide, real-time crime center. I consider myself in the city extremely lucky. I mean, there's cities in Gwinnett County, cities all over the state that are trying to get a real-time crime center. We've had that in existence. We have it here in the building. So that from jump is because the city it's standing as a smart city, and technology and using that technology to thwart crime is very important. So we would hit the ground running with that. All right, so next, concerns. I know Brian had brought up some scenarios where people talked about visibility, response times, and things of this nature. And obviously city ordinance things and all those, it kind of all comes together. But this particular slide here, we have had a lot of problems in the city with nightly establishments that on the face look like they come in, they give a good proposal, they start, and then all of a sudden they get off the tracks or off the rails, if you will. They'll sell alcohol after hours, there'll be drug dealing, and it just kind of spirals there. So one of the priorities us as the marshals, because obviously we can enforce those ordinances, is to go out and do. Since I think we got here, Henry, correct me if I'm wrong or right, but probably 11, a dozen, 12 nightclubs or so that we've had serious problems that are no longer in existence anymore? Okay, perfect. That being said, this scenario here, this was one night last year. I had finished up working an off-duty job, and I said, let me patrol the city, let me go to the areas where these things are occurring. As I was in the area, Spalding and Winter's Chapel, a call came out, a tone. And when they put a tone over the radio, it's pretty serious, you gotta listen to it. Fight call, armed suspects, Corona billiards. So naturally I throw my lights on, I start heading that way. Of concern was when dispatch put out the call, they said no units available. So I knew I was going by myself, but hey, we're gonna do it. To my surprise, as I was driving and I was about a block away, I had to slam my brakes on because 6 Dunwoody units were piling into the parking lot. So very, very nice to see that back up when I wasn't expecting it. We go in, we detain. I happen to be the only Spanish speaker there, so I helped Dunwoody. Eventually, from the time, it was about 3:30, 3:31 when we pulled in. At 3:39, a Gwinnett unit was able to get freed up and come out to us, which we welcomed, but it still doesn't change the fact that at the time, there was emergency in the city and needed the police to be there. We didn't have it. The next, we go down to Town Center. Again, Brian showed that portion on the heat map. This was an situation where there was a domestic going on. It was getting pretty heated. And obviously, the call was dispatched. And ultimately, as you can see on this one, 4 GCPD officers cleared. They were heading there. 3 were heading from West Precinct. That's a pretty long distance from I-85 and Jimmy Carter to get all the way to Town Center. And then there was another officer at Best Friend Road. So as you can see, 2 officers, a lieutenant and a patrolman arrived at 5:08, and then another patrolman at 5:09 and the sergeant at 5:13. Luckily to that, prior to the police getting there, it got de-escalated, and I guess the person that was more problematic decided I probably need to get out of here before the police came. That one ended well. That doesn't always go that way. But again, another scenario where our problematic areas or areas where we can get some crime, they're at some distance and having to cover a lot of territory, traversing through the city of Norcross and all those, ultimately getting to the call. This next one, I know there's people have spoken about this one, so I figured I'd cover it just so you can get this particular one. On that day, I was doing some administrative stuff in the office. Henry was in his office. One of the things, I go back to us being very tech in pushing our stuff. I told Brian early, I said, hey, we all need TVs in our office to watch the cameras, since there's only 3 of us, for us to be, as optimal and as good as we can be. I remember looking up at the cameras, and I was watching the cameras over the bridge, the pedestrian bridge, and I see teenager, 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 teenager. I say, Henry, something's going on. We need to get in our cars. We need to get over here. Something's about to happen. And that's just the experience. For those who don't know me, I spent probably 2 decades of my 27 years in major felony. And a lot of it has started with small things that quickly escalate. So that being said, me and Henry take off. As soon as I'm picking up my computer and I'm looking out, the fists start flying. And I said, Henry, we got to go. So it changed. We jumped in our cars. We went blue lights there. Henry put the call over the radio, and initially it was something to the effect is they don't have anybody in service or someone's not available. So at that point, we punch it. Henry's able to get there in 3 minutes. That's Henry's car, top left. The bottom picture from there, the one with the circle there, that's me turning in. There was, top right, there was a Lieutenant Dunaway, who used to work with me prior, really good guy. He was working Wesleyan. He was about a block away. And he came by 8 minutes later. And then at that point, sometimes things are going on. Gwinnett just so happened to have the helicopter in the air. We welcomed their assistance. They came over, did some things. And ultimately, we get the bottom right, just so you know, this here is the melee, all this. All right, you had about 25, 30 kids. You had a bunch of little kids at the splash pad. As you can imagine, that's going to be a little bit traumatic for the little kids, the parents, and all that. However, we had some really good parents. They jumped in, tried to pull them away, got it. So by the time we actually got rolled in, they were just running everywhere. We detained some people, and then at some point in there, they were able to free up at roll call because they were at shift change, and that's an obstacle. But there's a reason for the 5:30 and the 6:30 shift, an overlap. The 5:30 people start. That means the 6:30 people should still be out in those other areas while the next shift replaces them. So in this scenario, that didn't happen. And so we got there. We spent a lot of time running around the forum, grabbing people. We were able to get some video footage of the instigators and all that other stuff. However, there was some comments about, and I think this is important, there were some comments, oh, it's just a little kid fight. Well, in my experience, and this recent study says otherwise. Open areas, parks, juveniles, pre-designated areas, and all those other things typically don't go well. And so we could go back a couple of years, unfortunately, to the Norcross incident. That was an incident where a student got coerced outside, maybe a block away from the school. The people were going to fight, and it was someone else that introduced a gun and shot that gun, and that little boy lost his life. So you can see how having police showing up very quickly helps de-escalating a lot of scenarios. Again, lucky for us, this didn't get any further, but again, we should always be thinking of these scenarios. And this other one, I think you've seen this. This has made national news, the Lululemon. But on this particular one, it was late at night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and an in-progress burglary was called in by security at the forum. And again, on this scenario, there was 4 GCPD officers that cleared on the call. One was in Peachtree Corners in Holcomb Bridge Park, and the other ones, again, were at West Precinct. And so in the middle of the night, with no traffic, still 8 minutes is decent, but how better it would have been if they were in the area being able to respond and doing some proactive things. So, but they ended up getting all those things and moved on. Current concerns. This is one kind of Brian had touched on. We get it directly through the marshal's emails, phone calls. We get it through city council about business owners being frustrated with aggressive panhandling, homeless people, just all these different things. And so, again, there's only 3 of us, so we lean in. Of course, we're going to call Gwinnett, say, hey, we got this scenario. We'll go ahead and get a criminal trespass authorization from the business owner, send it over to Gwinnett, say, hey, this is a priority. Can you please handle this? Well, in this scenario here, unfortunately, because they're busy, they have things going on, they weren't able to do any of the business checks. They reached out to Henry, said, Henry, it's gotten worse. We've not seen any police presence. Can you help us? We reinitiated that contact, sent it over to Gwinnett, and the day we sent it over, they sent and did a couple of those checks that you see up there 4 times. This is one of many that people in the city are frustrated about, that we jump in, we try to help, but again, we need that cooperation with Gwinnett.
All right.
Thank you.
So let me quickly close with a few things. One is just, if you look on here, this is just trying to, in one slide, really just lay out that when you have an organization that has more people to patrol a smaller area, you're going to have greater visibility, you're going to have improved response times. And when they report to City Council directly, then City Council has, the oversight over budget, over, priorities, things like that. Now, you can see on here, no agency is going to be able to check every box when compared to another one. Gwinnett certainly has some things organizationally, again, not per officer, but they have some advantages and things to consider, or things for mayor and council to consider as far as whether Gwinnett should remain the primary police department. Economy of scales, they do have specialized units already in existence within the organization. That doesn't require mutual aid or other things. That is an advantage. And they have greater surge capacity. We'll always have that. They're a very large agency. But when you're a community that doesn't need that often, you start getting into, is it better to have more officers patrolling a smaller area versus having a lot of officers that you could bring in, but they're coming from parts, afar. So this is just a quick way of saying that, again, smaller area, more people, you get, and more local control is a good recipe when you are the responsible party. Now, I oftentimes get questions about, well, have you talked to Gwinnett about this? Have you talked to Gwinnett, county government, about some of the concerns that have been coming up? And the answer is both yes and no. I will start by saying that any changes to the current arrangement are essentially structurally locked in. And by that I mean our IGA, our intergovernmental agreement, is part of the service delivery strategy for the entire county. And if we amend that, it requires all of the municipalities in Gwinnett to approve it. So this isn't a one-on-one arrangement between us and Gwinnett. It's locked into a much bigger constitutionally mandated process of that service delivery strategy. So that's just a long way of saying it's not as easy as just saying, hey, can we renegotiate our contract? Because it's not just between us, and it's, requires a lot of others. We do know that, again, the IGA stipulates that Gwinnett provides the same level of service to us that they do everywhere else. So when they come in doing the best they can with the resources they have, I'm not sure what room they have for improvement, because That's the level, the IGA, and that they work towards providing. So that's another thing when you're talking about, oh, you could ask them to change certain things. Again, not sure, the county government's given them the resources to do or to be able to meet that. You've heard a little bit of in the eaches. There has been communication. You saw official correspondence about asking for read-only access to CAD. That communication has happened over, the requirement of open records requests for incident reports. But we'll say this, that, the table I showed earlier, and that is theoretically, we could withdraw from the current arrangement, and if Gwinnett was open to it, step over and actually do a one-on-one arrangement. I mean, legally, that could happen. So I will be bundling our concerns into an official ask of the county government. So that will happen. We've done it again in the eaches, but I have not bundled it all together and just told the county administrator, hey, here are the problem areas, here are the resources Gwinnett doesn't have that we believe our community deserves. Can you help us? So that's upcoming. So I want you to, but there's not complete radio silence on this, because despite some of the concerns that we have, Gwinnett's still doing their thing. They're still, working hard, the resources they got. Major Griffin's still providing great service through the West Precinct. But again, they can only do what they can. Now, if council gets to a point where they're like, you know what, we would, potentially like to move into the area of having our own police department, question always comes up, okay, fine, but what would it cost? So, CPSM, the firm we use to help us to do the feasibility study, also then, after they provided us the optimal size department, worked to help apply the expenses to what it would take to stand up that department. We would have a couple of different iterations of it. The first, of course, is your capital items, the upfront cost for you to get started. The first officers you hire have to have uniforms and weapons and cars and everything. That's the breakdown there. The city would be able to cover that. So as a resident, you wouldn't, this would happen without you having any effect on you. We would have municipal court that would expand beyond what we currently run. And so we would obviously have to, and built in the cost for municipal court judge, the solicitor, court clerks. And then when you add 60 plus people, we would need to add an HR, personnel to manage all of the personnel of those. So that's built into the expenses of what it would cost. And then you've got the operating expense of the police department itself, which you can see right here how it's added up. We'll say a couple of things in there. One is you'll notice there's lease or purchase payments for the vehicles built in, also a lease for a police headquarters, because if we did this, it wouldn't be, along with a brand new, police headquarters that's constructed, we would look to lease existing office space and repurpose it. But we built the lease payments in for that. The education, the maintenance, pretty much all the things we could think of. Couple other things that have come up, jail. So if we ever had anybody who needed to be in custody, the arrangement with the sheriff's office is such that they get a percentage of the municipal court revenue. And so that's how we would pay for it. So it would be passed on to those who have fines levied against them in court. That's how that would happen. We wouldn't have a jail. We wouldn't be in that business. We would be transporting all of them to the existing county jail. 911. 911 has come up. 911 is not part of this because As it currently stands, certificates to run a 911 dispatch are issued by the state. Almost like if any of you are familiar with hospitals, certificates of need. You can't just build a hospital. You have to get a certificate of need to be able to do it. Well, the license to run 911 is issued by the state. Gwinnett's the only one that has one right now. And unless that changed, it would still need to be Gwinnett because the Gwinnett's the only one that has that license. So we didn't build it in, but if we did, just know that there is revenue that comes with that. There is a fee that's placed on your phones for 911 dispatch, but that's not built in here, so I just wanted to be clear about that. But, you know, we weren't the only ones. This wasn't our budget. It was provided by a third party. We did ground truth it to the best of our abilities, but that's what the expenses would be. Some have been like, well, you know, what's the baseline? I mean, is that high, low? Where are you at? So we threw up a number of area cities to kind of show where our operating budget would be in comparison. And depending on which metric you use, it doesn't stand out as being too high or too low. And by that I mean, if you took how much money we would be applying per position, it's on the high side, which is why we're on the top row there. That's the dollars per position. And that's a little bit higher because we built in a salary range that if we did this, we would be paying in the top third of the salaries of, you know, North Metro cities because that's who we're competing with, recruiting or retaining officers with. So we made sure it was a little bit higher than Gwinnett because that's who we know we would be competing with, and it's comparable, not quite the highest, but that's why it's a little bit higher is because recruiting and retaining officers it's hard. I mean, you know, and we wouldn't be immune to those challenges, so I don't want anybody to think that, oh, we magically would just have full strength right away. Not at all, but one of the ways to improve your odds is to be paying higher than, you know, some of the other ones.
It's showing 61 full-time positions, and go back one slide, and you're showing 61 vehicles, okay? You're talking 7 to 8 law enforcement, or sworn officers per shift, per day, okay?
61 vehicles? For what?
Question and answer we'll get to. Let's not do it now and jump in front, but we'll certainly be happy to answer that. All right, so this is just a show for those who are like, oh, is it high, is it low? I mean, per capita or per person or by population, we're in the middle. There are some cities that have, you know, more officers per people who live in there. That's more of a political decision and a crime stat decision based on how much crime you have. Some populations can be smaller, but they have more crime. They need more officers per person. Some might be bigger, but they have less crime. So using just population as a gauge is not the best, but just wanted to show you that budget, for those who are like, oh, it's way out of whack, I'm not sure when you compare, it looks pretty favorable. We thought that way even before we compared, but I wanted you all to see that. And then, of course, it always comes down to how would you pay for it. So with about a 12.1 annual budget for police, and then you've got additional court HR, but then you back out court revenue that court revenue generated from running municipal court, and you back out the budget of the current marshals because they would remain law enforcement officers. They would just be part of a police department. We ultimately would need about $11.2 million to pay for this when you run that out. Now, from the property tax standpoint, and I spoke to this earlier, currently Gwinnett is charging 2.9 mils. And it was an earlier slide. In 2020, it was at 1.6, but the county raised it to 2.9 5 years ago. And they can raise that again whenever they want, just like, city council could as well. But county commission is not immune to increasing it when they need. But that 2.9 mils generates about $9.4 million, and based on our tax digest. And so If we did that, we're short a little bit because we needed 11.2. There's a couple of scenarios, and I'm just going to show you the worst case one that I showed at the kickoff meeting, and that would be to cover it with increasing the millage. Now, given that we are on this journey of discussing it, my goal is to bring some other revenue streams to bear and decrease the amount of underlap between the property tax of 2.9 mils and what we need to pay for it, and would love to be able to have council consider this, and I tell them that the millage would stay the same. That is my goal. Again, I'm not being asked to present this tomorrow, so I'm still working on it, but the worst case would be increasing from 2.9. Just if you were wondering what would that do to you, here's just the table of showing home values, and you can see that if we did go to 3.5 mils, that would be the annual cost differential. You know, if you had a house valued at $200,000, you'd be paying an additional $12 per year, not per month, per year additional. If your home was valued at $1 million, it would be an additional $120 a year or $12 a month. That's if, and that would be worst case scenario. Well, so if renters, because they're not property owners, aren't paying property tax directly. It's usually passed down to them by the landlord who does own the property and does have to pay the property tax. So renters generally see it anyway. It's just it means that your rent goes up. So you go in and when the property manager says, "Hey, ma'am, your rent's going to go up next year by X dollars," and you're like, "Why?" Well, and they'll point to something. It's property owners, not homeowners. Commercial property, any property owner pays on property tax. It's not just residential homeowners. All the commercial property owners have to pay it too. And that's the same with Gwinnett's special police millage as well. So there's no difference there. It's just property taxes paid by property owners. All right, so okay, so let me close and then I'll answer your question first and then we'll open the floor. I do want to just close by saying, look, as a reminder, there's going to be resource. This PowerPoint will be available tomorrow. The video of this will be available probably in 24 hours if somebody wants to watch it. The video is actually cutting to these slides. It's not on me the whole time. So anybody who watches the video is really seeing the slides more than anything. That'll be available. We've got additional information going on there, including when we get the professional advice we need on the survey, there'll be a big push to have you fill out a survey again. So I just encourage you to go there, encourage you to keep your ear to the ground on additional meetings into the future. But please, if you do feel like now or in the future, you feel like you've been educated enough to provide your opinion, let council members know that. I mean, that's the purpose of this, is to get this information out and let council know if you think that the quality of police service here is either adequate now or it could be improved, so that one day when they are considering it, they've received your feedback from that. And I do want to close again by just reiterating the fact that, despite there being some, concerns about resources that are available for, public safety, that Gwinnett Police Department itself is doing the absolute best that they can with the resources they have. And so I don't want this to be, about their individual performance. It's more of a bigger structural, decision by county government. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put that probably right here. All right, so while he's putting that up, I'll answer the lady's question, and then you can just start. It-
down
it-
the left-hand side, that way you can exit through the center to go back to your rooms.
So I'll answer the question about other revenue streams. Or I'll wait for you all to. You ready? It's only 8:30.
I know, but you guys have been here for an hour and 20 minutes already.
I mean, I'll be here as long as, if you want to go get breakfast, I'll wait for you. Well, hey, you won't be in about 2 seconds. I'll tell you that right now if you're bored. Yeah. Nope. Okay, all right. Hey, let's be respectful to those who are coming up here. There's a perfectly good lobby out there if you want to have some conversations. All right. I will, before I turn it over, to answer the first question. One question was my effort to try to bring other revenue streams to bear to close that gap. The city has a number of different types of revenue streams that we use for different things. One good example would be our special purpose local option sales tax. That's a revenue stream that's restricted to capital projects or capital outlay, like, for instance, the purchase of police vehicles could be one in which that revenue stream could be used to purchase police vehicles. So we're looking at maybe using that money, some of that money, to purchase the vehicles, which would decrease the cost. And you just pick away at little revenue streams and just try to close that gap. So that's my goal. I'm not standing here saying it's all done yet, but there are some measures I can take, and I might be able to close it all, but that is my goal. So for those who didn't know that, all right, so, sir, you are first, and I will be happy, and Chief, to do our best to answer any of your questions.
If I could, I'll promise you, I'll hit my timer, no more than 2 minutes. All right, let the time begin. First of all, I want to commend you for redoing the survey. This is such an important issue, and it needed to have balance to go each way. That is the kind of leadership we're used to having here. So thank you very much for that. Concerning one of the things that was stay in the zone. Folks, that's not how law enforcement works. If you make a custodial arrest at rush hour, you're going to Lawrenceville. It's going to take hours. You got undocumented persons right now. You got to take them to the jail. If you've got inmates that you got to pick up, you got to transport them back. You work a serious accident or 2 or 3 serious accidents with drugs or alcohol, you're going to the hospital. So you can go from having 4 officers to having none in a heartbeat. It's just the nature of the job. So having the backup resources is something. Now, one of the things that at the level I work at is the professional investigations. This is a very strong uniform model. It's not a strong detective or investigation model. In crimes that keep people awake, like crimes against children, sexual assaults, property crimes, homicides, those things are really special investigations. Any CSI fans, Gwinnett's got 24/7, and those folks are good, really good. You get a world-class training center. Now, one thing I've not heard, I mean, there's no question that you want the police presence more. One thing I would ask you to consider is build it and they will come. Right now, you've got officers beginning their shift for Gwinnett on the other side of 85. Well, how about not just a little rental space, but how about a building here, a precinct here? So then you've got all the officers, they start their shift here, so you got that group, and then they go out from there. Just putting a precinct in one location, and I went over by 20 seconds.
All right, first of all, thank you, sir, for your comments.
All right.
Thank you for your comments. I want to speak to 2 of them. One is the last point about a precinct. That will be actually part of the request made up to the county administrator. And then two, want a point of clarification, when we talk about officers, if the term not leaving Peachtree Corners city limits, it's important to note that what really is not patrolling outside of Peachtree Corners city limits, not having a call for service out. There will definitely be times where you're transporting somebody or going to the hospital, you know, because that kind of stuff, that will definitely happen. What we have currently is a call for a service outside, not that, that's what, but I just wanted, that was a good point. Yes, sir.
On your very first slide tonight, you showed 70% of the people that attended the meeting in May. I'm sorry. In your first slide tonight, you showed that 70% of the people that attended this first meeting in May are not in favor of the police, of the Peachtree Corners Police Department. Where did you get that number?
That came from the survey, sir.
It came from
The
where?
first survey,
How did you get that number?
by adding up those who checked no, that I don't want a police department. That was one of the questions. It was, would you like the city to stand up a police department, yes or no?
So that was a piece of paper at that meeting that people filled
No,
out?
no, that was an online survey that they went to our website and filled it out.
How many people here got that survey? Really? Okay. All right. First of all, I want to say thank you to our Gwinnett County police officers, and I want to honor the ones that are here with us tonight. There is a, hang on just a minute here. I had a statistic I wanted to share with you all. Bear with me a moment if you don't mind. When it comes to staffing, I know that they shared some numbers up here tonight, but there is not a city, state, or county law enforcement department across the United States that has a full staff. Every police department out there, including Gwinnett County, when it comes to sworn law enforcement officers that are on the road and that are there to protect us, even Gwinnett County has not maxed out on what has been approved for the county police department. And I can promise you right now that Peachtree Corners will be in the same boat. We will not have what they say we will have. There are statistics available. Hang on just a minute here. Yeah, I'll come back. I'll come back.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Okay, so just one question that I saw, or one line item I did not see in your budget, and that was relative to insurance, specifically law enforcement, legal liability, and automobile insurance, and to a degree, workman's compensation. You know, I think that's going to be a big number too.
So we did add 100,000. We have, as a municipality, we have to have liability insurance anyway.
Absolutely.
But our brokers who end up shopping it for us had us add $100,000 to what we already pay, which is a very large number already for the addition of police. So we did build in what, what our broker said would be the increase that we would potentially see from our current liability.
As an underwriter, that seems like a low number to me.
And it might be, I mean, we're just listening to
So
somebody who
especially
also does
60
that too.
61 vehicles out there. That seems like a low, especially emergency response vehicles.
I mean,
So-
duly noted, we'll maybe get some other brokers to also weigh in on that.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on.
When it comes to thanking the Gwinnett County Police Department, I want to share some statistics with you that came from the police department. And these are statistics that these guys won't share with you, okay? And this date is from July 2024 through July 2025. In the city of Peachtree Corners, robberies were down 27%. Aggravated assaults down 55%. Rapes down 67%. Residential burglaries down 13%. Commercial burglaries down 72%. Automobiles being broken into down 58%. Theft down 5%. Stolen vehicles down 17%. That's not something you're going to hear from them. These are statistics that we need to thank these guys for.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing is, I don't know if y'all are aware of this or familiar with it, but if Peachtree Corners was to get their own police department, these guys are not going to be patrolling. You're not going to see a Gwinnett County policeman. They're not going to be in our city. If there are services that we as taxpayers through our property tax pay for, such as SWAT, well, we don't pay for bomb squad because that's federally funded. But when it comes to all the different departments that are inside of, all the different units that are inside Gwinnett County Police Department, homicide, gang squad, vice squad, drugs, narcotics, go on down the line, the officers that provide that protection for us from Gwinnett County, right now it doesn't cost us anything. But those different units within Gwinnett County Police Department, if we as a city have to contract with Gwinnett County to have those services provided, we got to pay for it. Right now, we don't pay for it. Okay?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. If you want to find out a little bit more about statistics and you're into that, please, by all means, we encourage you to go to the website. That's all. All the things we put together are based on Gwinnett County Police Department giving us those direct results, and you'll be able to see those broken down. So please, we encourage you that. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, because obviously I think it's important to cover, I actually sat through City of Tucker's North Lake CID the other day, Tuesday night, and they had a similar meeting like this. And GACP, if you're not familiar with the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police, they basically govern, or they are responsible for all the training, post, and all that for law enforcement officers. They have acquired the building next door to us. They're moving from Duluth. They decided they wanted to come to Peachtree Corners, so they're doing some renovating. They'll be here. But part of their study, they looked at Dunwoody, they looked at Brookhaven, they looked at Johns Creek. And with the exception of a few, they were all fully staffed. So a lot has to do with the culture of the police department, is everything. It's the leading, it's the message that's sent, and all those things are super important. You know what the saying, people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad, right? And so I say that in those type of situations, that's a real thing, right? And so I just look, if you do research, again, I called all these places. Some may be off by one, maybe two, but if you look at that percentage on an agency that's supposed to be 900 and they're down to 650, 700, that's very, very large numbers.
I'm going to have to use the mic. I'm terrible on the phone, so I brought my laptop. So I've tried to organize this to make it go quick. All right. So when you quoted, you put up on the slide there, the CPSM summary, and even when you read it, let me ask you this. Did the summary, anywhere in that summary, suggest or recommend Peachtree Corners building their own police department? And I know the answer to that.
They did not.
They did not.
Nor
And in
did
fact-
I ask them to.
Right. And nor did you include the next sentence after what you posted up there. And I've got it right here. All right, they have the executive summary. All right, so you talked about how we're well-positioned to start our own police department. I'm not sure what well-positioned must mean. Apparently they're willing to pay the money and put together, based on the parameters that they gave them, we want a small system. But the very next sentence, you can get it real quick here, kept it responsibility. All right, then it says, however, we caution that the operational capacity or capabilities of a reasonably staffed police force for the community will not include as many specialized units, SWAT and so on, they go on for. So they have a warning. You go ahead with this on your own, you're gonna leave a gaping hole that needs to be filled. And they even said, that was not part of, if you read through, you go back through their summary, they say, we didn't account for that. So yeah, you're gonna have to find, you talked about additional funding already? They're not even accounting for what the gaping hole they have to fill. I know we like to see it, it makes us feel good. Hey, look, my car's been broken into, my son's car's involved, I get it. It pisses you off. And you feel like, where is everybody? That was years ago. Hasn't happened lately. So we see boots on the ground. Oh, I see my cop. Yeah, I feel good. But there's more to it. And when you look at the services they provide, and we all talk about mental health issues, is a big issue with crime right now. Gwinnett County Police Department has been at this for a long time. Their brand, and this city likes to talk about branding, they have created a brand that is not only nationally recognized, but globally recognized. They're one of, 22, 24 police departments around that world that have the Tri-Arc, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. There are countries that would love to have the technology and the capabilities that it is, as a citizen, it almost scares me what they're capable of doing and what they're using right now. And it's not only that, it's what comes after the event. They support the community. They have the connections, the personal or the professional relationships already built in. So it's not just an arrest, throw them in jail. In fact, they've done a record job of keeping them out of jail through their units. Yeah, we're gonna miss that helicopter. We'll get the SWAT, there's a few other things, but it's beyond the boots on the ground, and guys, I don't mean this in a derogatory, the military aspect. Oh yeah, let's send in the troops. There's a lot, you mentioned going into the queue, all right? You got frustrated because we just end up going into the queue, all right? Gwinnett County has basically their own GBI. So if they have to get evidence, DNA, fingerprint, all sorts of specialized research and investigation done, and they go to GBI. That's what a lot of these cities have to do. Guess what happens? GBI says, hey, great, take a number, you're going in the queue. Don't have to, all right? Real quick, if you don't mind, but I'm gonna refer to the slide that you put up, which was part of the Future of Law Enforcement Peachtree Corners, slide 41, which had the check marks. I don't know if you want to put it up, but I'm going to pull it up real quick on mine. This one, you made my job easy here, all right? I'm looking at the first statement. Startup phase may cause temporary disruption. Wow, wait, what does that mean? Are we talking about our cable going out? We're talking about public safety. Temporary? What does temporary mean? A year, 2 years? Let's translate. That's a learning curve. They've gone through the learning curve for years. The training, they've even mentioned, the training is twice what the state requires. Temporary, pause in service. Hold on a second, all right? Direct oversight. Oh, here's one I love. Direct oversight of city leadership, policies, decisions tailored to, guys, And I know they mentioned it, and that's why I mentioned it. That's a city light argument. They pulled out the city light playbook, dusted it off, and put that in there. We want control. Well, we know how that works and how that's turned out for us. And here's the last. I want to finish. I know he's going to push me out of here, but the last thing and there's a lot, and they open that door. All right? Again, there is one, and this is an uncomfortable conversation to have with any cop. Internal affairs. I know, but they're going to have one. They've posted. They have one, but you don't understand the size and scope of their internal affairs. And here's my reason for I adamantly oppose, not you guys, but these city officials taking charge of a police department. I hope, I don't wish this on anyone, that there's some questionable, and it happens in every police department, there is some questionable police behavior that requires internal affairs, and hopefully no one gets hurt. Who are you going to trust for open, transparent, and fair information? The city that promised City Light and bailed on that quick, and don't tell me they were forced out, bailed on that quickly, and they've done that ever since, through the bridges, the park, everything else. They've they've put their thumb on the scales, and they're doing it again. Guys, you better be careful. You better be careful. There's a gaping hole that they are not filling. Yeah. I get you. Okay, I got a question for here. I got a Q&A. Officer, right. Let me ask a question. You want a question? Officer Restrepo. Officer Restrepo. And you mentioned it. Is it against marshal policy to allow your marshals to work side gigs? It's a normal thing.
Is it against? No, it's part of our policy. We're allowed to do it.
Okay. Are they allowed to work side gigs outside of Peachtree Corners using Peachtree Corners?
In some instances, yeah, we try.
Okay. So this force multiplier that we were told you are a part of, and gosh darn, we wish we had more people on the ground. So, hey, oh, I'm sorry. Well, I asked the question, so let me respond. So the force multiplier, theoretically, they could be taking care of some other district's public safety needs and leaving us out, while the Gwinnett County has to handle it. I'm just saying, guys, you better. I apologize for taking up my time.
Yeah.
I agree, but they're handling
Appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead. We're going to allow the next person to come in. We're going to try to be respectful and hold it to a decent amount of time. I know there's a lot of people that want to voice their opinion, and we want to be able to give them that. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
I'll be a little quicker than that. I just want to share with you some of the concerns that I have and some of the things that I see. You know, we've been fortunate. We haven't had a murder since the Quick Trip, thank God. That's not to say that we're not looking at one in the near future, and I pray to God that doesn't happen. But we treat shoplifting like it's just one of those things that happens. Why? Suppose my wife is walking past Belk's at the Forum, and here comes some dude with an armload of designer handbags and knocks her on her butt, gives her a concussion or kills her, or the guy that's waiting in the car to pick up the handbags has got a gun and shoots her or me because I'm trying to help her. I mean, the barbarians are at the gate, and I think that's a really good, instruction that they were putting out. If you look at the devastation that took place across the street from us, I live in Amberfield. You've got Peachtree Station there that was vandalized, cars, guns stolen, laptops. Somebody got in a garage, which is like a couple of feet from the house. That's serious stuff there. And you know, what you were talking about in terms of what it would cost us, your deductible on your homeowners is higher than what it would cost us annually to have a police department. So I think there's a lot of good reason to say that just the mere presence of the officers, which we don't have now, is well worth it. Thank you.
Well, I'm short, so I have to take it out. I guess I have a couple of questions and some really big concerns. The city of Peachtree Corners has been concerned about law enforcement for a while, and that is why we started our marshals and why we have this current program. And I guess my concern is, as you put up on the board, that the marshals are incapable of doing their jobs quite often because of communications with Gwinnett County PD or not having access to certain things. And I guess as a resident, if when you were setting up the marshal's office, you didn't realize that there were these interdepartmental stipulations, that it's not Gwinnett County's fault that they don't enforce ordinances because those are city ordinances. So the county, our city marshals are the only people that were supposed to enforce that with our code officers. We spend over $2 million a year on code enforcement. It was the first service of 3 that our city adopted, and here in 12 years, you're kind of implying that code enforcement is a huge issue. So you've either done a really lousy job handling that and setting up our marshals. So I'm very confused by that. So why should we trust you with the police department if our marshals can't do their job? And then I have more.
Well, 2 things. One, not saying the marshals can't do their job, it's making it more difficult. They're not as effective as they could be if they had better communication. The other thing about ordinance enforcement, it really doesn't matter why they won't, can't, whatever word you want to use. It doesn't matter how they got to that point. They are at that point. So city council has to consider what Gwinnett provides us as
But that was our
lacking-
first service that we adopted. So why are they now 12 years later saying they can't do it? Like, that's where my confusion lies. Why should I trust the city with a full-fledged police department that handles murders, ticketing, and all of that if you can't currently handle your own codes that we wrote? We changed Gwinnett County codes to be the city of Peachtree Corners. We don't allow chickens. We don't allow liquor stores unless they're standalone. We completely changed the codes. So how can they, running by Gwinnett County codes, even be considered to do ours? Like, you knew that when you formed the city. That was the independence we sought with codes.
Well-
So what am I making that point right? You're not understanding? What I'm saying is, the city, 12 years ago, adopted 3 services, correct?
Yes.
Zoning to prevent overcrowded unit housing, okay? That was their first one, zoning. So how that worked. Second was trash, and trash they do, and we're all forced on our tax bill to pay so that we don't have lots of garbage cans going through the city, right? And then the third one was code enforcement. They didn't like how Gwinnett County was doing it. They said, we don't like how Gwinnett County is doing code enforcement. So we're gonna take that on as a city, and we're gonna make our own codes. And now you're using that as a point to say, we're mad at the police department because they won't do what we told them they shouldn't do.
I'm not still sure. All I know, wasn't here at the beginning, all I know is it wasn't, but it was,
But didn't we
Ray
form?
Boy, when the county attorney weighed in, what, 6 years ago or so, 5, 6 years ago, officially that they were not. Prior to that, I'm not so sure they weren't enforcing some of our local code. And it was the county attorney's office who got involved and said, no, officially have looked at it and we're not going to do your code, despite us giving them permission to.
Okay,
So that
so that's a county issue that you, the city of Peachtree Corners, you keep creating these problems, and then you want our taxes to solve the problems you create. You created a code issue now, and you're saying, oh, we're gonna charge you more money to fix it. Oh, we got crime at the Forum, we got crime at the town center. Ooh, who built those? So I guess as a citizen, I'm very concerned to give you any more power or trust because you haven't shown me you can do a good job in in that area with code enforcement, and then you bring in marshals and you tell me $1.1 million more to fill the gaps of Gwinnett PD and to enforce our codes, and now you say, oh, their hands are tied. How would you not know that when you were starting the marshal's office? That's where my concern is. You seem to always have these problems when you were trying to solve them, and then you don't solve them, and then you come back to us for more money. And I don't want it. I like Gwinnett County PD. I think they do a great job, and I really don't think we need a Peachtree Corners police force.
Hi, I just wanted to share with you my experience with Gwinnett County PD. Oh, okay, is that close enough? About 18 months ago, there were gunshots fired at night about 100 feet from my house. We called 911 and no one arrived. A week later, more gunshots, more calls to 911, still no one arrived. Week 3, more gunshots, more calls to 911, no one arrived. Week 4, there were 400 rounds fired 100 feet from the back of my house. And we jumped up and down until a Gwinnett County police officer showed up. It took 3 hours. We went to the field where the shots were coming from, and it was littered with spent shells or spent casings. So now fast forward 2 months ago, the city of Peachtree Corners is considering their own police department, and again, gunshots in the same exact location. But this time, because you guys are thinking about starting your own police department, Gwinnett County pulls the flock cameras, they locate the car, they find the owner, they issue a warrant, and they go and they search for the gun. Why wasn't this done 18 months ago? I mean, there's gunshots 100 feet from my house. It shouldn't take the threat of breaking up with them for them to become good boyfriends. I'm sorry, I just want to feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll use the mic. Normally, I don't need to. My question is to you, why did you not negotiate some of this with the county? Because Rizzo just said after he got here, he met with the county, and the county says no. So somewhere along the way, the due diligence wasn't done properly. But at the same time, I'm a native Atlantan. I've only lived out here for 41 years. So I got the con of city light. We didn't get a vote after that. But the point being is deep down inside, that's the best group of men and women wearing the uniform in the state of Georgia. I've taken the Citizens Police Academy. If you haven't taken it, get in there and take it. You're going to learn a lot. Later, you can take the FBI Academy. That's even more fun. But deep down inside, I think this is resume fodder for yourself. Thank you.
My name's Kathy. I'm a resident and I'm a small business owner. I have 100 questions for you, and I won't do that. But I have to tell you, my frustration level is really high. This is my 3rd meeting about this topic, and we keep talking about the Gwinnett County Police Department. So I was privileged enough to be appointed. How many of you have heard of the Gwinnett County Police Citizens Advisory Board? Okay, so in Gwinnett County, there are a group of citizens who spend, for me it was 3 years, I think. We went around everywhere in the county, including right here, and went to citizens and said, what do we need to do? What do we need to do to bridge the gap between citizens and our police department? What does the police department need to do better? What does it look like when you have a situation like the story we just heard that was a terrible story? But what I saw demonstrated was a command staff that was reasonable, that worked their tails off, that was proud, that served well. Our training, the CALIA certification somebody was talking to, I don't know, I think 4% of agencies in the world hold that certification. You know well what I'm talking about. We have that certification. It's for training, it's for use of force, it's how you handle prisoners. And so, one, everybody should know right now, if you don't like something that's going on with Gwinnett County Police Department, you should go to them because they will respond. I witnessed it. I heard from citizens, the whole board, we heard from citizens everywhere. And what we heard was men and women with hearts to serve, to get better. And no, I don't think they do a pretty good job. I think they do a darn good job. And I'm very proud of them. So if you have a problem, go to the police department. The city is not in charge of them. They are their own entity. But my biggest frustration, this is the third meeting, and this will be the third time it's been said, we're talking about them. We are talking about, well, we've talked to them a little bit, but not a lot. Why aren't we sitting down at the table if we feel like things are falling through the cracks? That is, I think, our city's responsibility to be sitting at the table with them, but to talk about them in these meetings and say, they denied this and they denied this, I would like for you to let somebody from the police department, if they would even be willing, answer that. We talk about them. Let's talk to them. Let's talk with them. So would you be willing to let them answer some of the denied, denied, denied slides? Can they come up and speak to that? Because it's only fair.
Well, speaking of fairness, what I'm not sure is fair, though, is putting instruments of policy into a position where they're having to answer about a policy decision. The decision to not give read-only CAT access was made above Gwinnett. It wasn't a Gwinnett County Police Department decision.
So
That
do
was
they
their
know
boss.
why? I understand.
We
I
know why. I showed you the letter's part of the presentation.
I couldn't read it, honey.
Well, you can't, but I'm just saying, I don't believe some of these decisions are actually Gwinnett County Police Department decisions.
So my question, my
It's
specific...
above them, county attorney, county administrator, county commissioners that have made changes. For instance, we know that we used to ask for incident reports not too long ago, just a year or two ago, and we would get them from Gwinnett. Gwinnett Police was very willing to provide it. And then all of a sudden, we were informed that you've got to get in line with everybody else. Our sworn officers have to get in line with everybody else and file an open records request. I don't believe it was Gwinnett County Police Department that made those decisions. They're doing the best they can. I mean,
No,
they're
doing great. That
Okay.
sounds disparaging. My question was this. Would you allow, if they are even allowed to, or would feel comfortable doing it, to speak to their position on that slide where we, the city, said they denied it, they denied it, they denied it? If we don't, if we are fully transparent, then I don't know why we would not allow them to speak to it.
If somebody in their official capacity wants to get up here and talk, I'm not gonna, this is an open mic. I'm not preventing anybody from doing that. I
So
mean,
they
not
could
at
speak
all.
to those.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I just don't want to, well, but if they want, if it was their meeting, they can take as long as they want. But if it's not, then,
So this is our meeting, not yours, sir. So what I'm saying is Gwinnett County should be able to speak like she said.
and they can.
Because you're selling past the close, let's just vote on it. Put it out for a vote and see what see what we want. We're
But
talking
anyway,
about
I
this
have no
too much.
problem. I have no problem.
I'll ask. I don't know that they would.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I'll try to make mine short. And I know I'm gonna follow up a little bit on this one, and a little bit different than the lady presented, but since we're all members of Gwinnett County, on our next meeting, which I assume we're gonna have, can we invite a representative from Gwinnett County to come and give their position in the open forum? So, sort of like, you've given your presentation today. Surely someone from Gwinnett County, the police department or their administration, can also have an allotted time to give a presentation to us as county residents. Will you extend that offer?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. I appreciate it. One thing I did want to bring up, on my drive over here, I drove by that Corona bar, and there was a 2-car accident there. And there wasn't an ambulance or anything, and there were 7 Gwinnett County cars. So they were on the ball. And the third thing, the ordinances that we talked about that Gwinnett County can enforce by their police department, how many ordinances do we have in Peachtree Corners that are law enforcement related that differ from Gwinnett County's?
Obviously, I had mentioned the alcohol ones. The alcohol ones are big because a lot of our major crime stems from them. So Gwinnett would literally drive by those locations, and comments of sometimes would be like, well, we can't do anything about that. I've told them, you guys can come in with your body cams, do it. There's actually an ordinance in the county that says a county officer can conduct a business check of any business in the county at any time. So that's one. And then second, we've had so many issues, shootings, stabbings, drug dealing, all these things that we really didn't have much of a choice. Either we as the marshals would step in and take care of what needed to be taken, or unfortunately there'd be a lot of crime scene tape that would be put up at these locations. But what I'm saying is there's a lot. So there's alcohol, there's noise ordinances, there's just a lot of quality of life issues, a lot of things that if you call the police that you would think that they'd be able to do. Now I will give a little bit. When I was at the Gwinnett County Police Department and I was the head of West Precinct, I was almost to the point of annoyance at the police department because I said, we need to fix this problem. I don't like the fact that my officers from West Precinct are going out to the location trying to fix a problem that they're not able to resolve. And I said, they're gonna go out and it's gonna be a simple noise complaint. They're gonna have to wrestle somebody. Something could go bad, a shooting happened, and be like, why were they there? We were making headways. I made like 2 or 3 meetings. I had county attorneys, myself and Brian, we were sitting there. We said, we need to resolve this. And things were going well, and unfortunately, one day I was tapped on the shoulder and said, Eddie, you need to stand down. That's between the city and the county. And I said, okay. So that's where you said, this started a long time ago when I was the major at West Precinct because I felt it was a problem. It was brewing and there was gonna be a big problem. And I put it forth, and we made it the attention that it needed to get, but for some reason, I can't say for sure why at that level they decided not to.
Okay, I don't know if we're answering the same question
Okay.
because I'm asking the order of magnitude
Yes.
of how many ordinances are different between Gwinnett County and Peachtree Corners that require police intervention. I know we got our chicken ordinance and we got our
So,
nose ordinance.
everything, alcohol, everything disorderly, all those things which are big. Like if you walk into, let's say, a nightly establishment that's after hours, they can't do anything. Now, if there's a state charge, if there's a juvenile in there that's drinking, they could handle that. They could arrest an 18-year-old that's in an establishment. They
We've
could do
got an
that.
alcohol ordinance. How many of them do we have? Where's the variance? What's the order of magnitude?
Oh, there's tons. Like serving more than 2 drinks to a person. There's just, I mean, we can go into it, not having more than X amount of bottles or, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So on the table,
I'm
there's
not
just
going to hold
tons.
everybody's time up here,
Sure.
but I'll follow up with you later.
Yeah, please, if
and-
you will. Let me give you a card.
Don't worry, I got your name.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Getting better. Week 5. My name's Don Gasperi. I live in Peachtree Station. I've been there for 38 years. I love to be a contrarian, so you're not going to like what I have to say. I've always been very critical of the city council, the mayor, the city manager. And if you're not sure of that, just ask any of them. But because I've come to a lot of these meetings, especially the land use ones, and I'm known to speak my mind and I'm known to study stuff. And I've done a lot of studying on this issue. I've heard a lot of great comments tonight from people. Some things I didn't like because they were like personal. And I think that's a problem we need to get over. But from my perspective, this isn't about today. It's not about some $70 tax increase or $500 tax increase. It's about the future of this city. And the future isn't yesterday or all of the things I heard tonight. It's the future. A lot of you people have kids and grandkids. I have great-grandkids that would love to live in a community like this. Gwinnett County has done a very good job. No one should question that. But at the same time, we have an opportunity to do this ourselves. And don't disparage these people, because I've spent a lot of time with them here in this building because I've had issues, not with them, but issues. And every one of them, the city council, the people I've met here, really care about this city. So when you have complaints, that's fine. Just, it doesn't have to be so personal. So let me give you one fact that I got from Gwinnett County's long-range strategic plan. And it's based on the U.S. Census Bureau and the Atlanta Regional Commission. Gwinnett County is going to grow by 500,000 people in the next 20 years. 20 years. An average, straight math, 25,000 people a year. And in their plan, the number one thing that they say is going to be the most difficult thing for them to address is the police, the county police, the infrastructure. Again, I'm not taking away from anyone, but that's a tremendous drain on our resource. If you use the same simple math, Peachtree Corners is going to go from 42,000 people to 65,000 people. Do we really think with 500,000 people going into Gwinnett County that they're going to have more time to deal with us? I just don't believe that. And it's nothing against any individual in this room or sitting over in Lawrenceville, wherever they sit, but it's a fact. And they put it in their plan as something they have to address. So I think we need to think real hard about what we want to address here. And that's all I've got to say. Sorry.
Okay, listening to him toned me down a little bit. Look, we heard people that lived here a long time. I'll just tell you, my father first started working for Paul Duke in 1971 and ran his companies for him from the early 70s into the 80s. So I have a great love of this area. My father wrote the original ordinances. He built Technology Park here and all these things that we enjoy still today from earlier on. Now, we did take down the blue awning buildings so that we could build some really ugly as hell apartments, but that's all beside the point. So here's my 2 cents. The promises and sales pitch given to us in 2011 to the citizens here in Peachtree Corners by the UPCCA and the leadership that is now in leadership of the Peachtree Corners centered around 1, local zoning control, specifically to limit apartment development, which has been a total failure by this city, to keep from overloading the infrastructure and traffic issues. Number 2, avoiding further annexation by Norcross. I will give them credit. There are city limits. Norcross can't come over them. A success. Preserving community identity and quality of life. These were specifically listed in 2011 as what Peachtree Corners was going to do based on what the UPCCA was promising us of why we should vote yes on Peachtree Corners. Number 3, preserving community identity and quality of life. And as I mentioned, this is very personal to me as my father worked with Mr. Duke for so many years, setting standards and maintaining a live, work, play city. Number 4, economic benefits and infrastructure control. Instead, while I think traffic circles are fine, I kind of like them. I drive over in Europe sometimes. I like traffic circles. I don't have a problem with traffic circles. While I think they're fine, they wouldn't be necessary if number 1, the above, about apartments, hadn't caused the population of Peachtree Corners to balloon 23% since 2011. With 2,500 or so, I don't know what the actual number is because you can't get it, but 2,500 or so apartment units which have 3 or 4 people in them. That's 10,000 people right there just by building all these damn departments. And some of them, as I mentioned, are Soviet bloc. The ones just north of here, just past the liquor store, next to Raceway, those are the ugliest damn buildings I've ever seen. They look like something out of East Germany. And finally, we were going to stay simply a city light. Look, y'all, I'm not proud to admit this, but I've done a lot of lobbyist work in my life. I'm a lobbyist. I'm also a management consultant that knows how you make numbers look on a board and do whatever you want to so you can sell your services and do some more. Did y'all pick up on, I believe the company that they had do the second survey is probably a company that sells their services to help a city stand up, a city police department. I may be wrong, but that's what they do, I believe. But here's how you do it down at the Capitol. If you want something done, I had bills that I've worked with legislators for 25 years, now I've been in politics 35 years. I have worked with legislators, and they said, well, legislative council says this can't be done. Well, you go take legislative council to lunch. You have some other lobbyists talk to legislative council is just a bunch of lawyers that do what the legislators want them to do. And so you go down there and you say, hey, we need you to say that city light is unconstitutional. And you can get it done. It's not like the state Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. Legislative council said it was, which opened the door to this latest planned power grab to have our own law enforcement under their incompetent control. The last thing I need to hear from the current city leadership is more empty promises of their good intentions. I simply don't trust the follow-through or implementation.
I'm Bob Manka, lived in Peachtree Station for 40 some odd years. So I've really got 2 questions. I guess the first question was to what degree was any consideration given to, it seems like manpower is an issue, presence. So we've got city marshals. So to what degree was any consideration given to ramping up the number of city marshals? I think we've got 3, is that right? 4, whatever. And then the follow-up is, and if we go the other way, way beyond that to our own police force, I'm looking at the Gwinnett figures that they got about 60 some odd % of their authorized is staffed. And if we fall in that same boat, 60% staffed, it looks like we're going to wind up with about the same number of people. Our 5 to 7 is now 4 or 5, which is about what we're supposed to have now. But from a practical matter, I need you especially, I think, Chief Marshal, to say, is that better? Because at least it'd be the same number, but they'd be here instead of yonder.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your scenario, and I think a lot of people are concerned about how the initial startup would go, I could just go by historically. And the agencies that have started up, your Johns Creek, your Sandy Springs, and all of them, they were able to attract a lot of good, experienced officers. So that's a benefit when you start up an agency and you kind of lay it down, because there's a lot of people that want to be part of that special startup of an agency. So, and then as I previously said before, there's many instances where we go around and those agencies, again, are only down 1 to 2 officers. I mean, Gwinnett, I think's authorized strength is 931. I may be off by a number, and every year they add. As of the last one, they might be up in the high 600s. I'm not going to say an exact number because I don't have that information. However, that's that concern when it comes to staffing. Was there another question? I'm sorry, I may have missed it. That was baked in.
One other thing about, we could always keep adding marshals. The problem with that, though, is unlike police, there's about $11 million, definitely 9.4 from property owners going to police. Marshals are just providing the same service, but there's no revenue stream that you're already paying for it. So that's coming out of something else that the city can't do. That's why, rolling up marshals and keeping, growing that would just result in us not being able to do something else. Well, whether we would be better off if we doubled the amount of marshals? Well, I mean, every additional post-certified law enforcement officer is always one better. So definitely, it's just, again, the revenue to pay for those are not built in. This community's putting in about, or definitely 9.4 million for.
And I appreciate the concern about money, I think everybody is, but I'm trying to separate the money from what we're getting. I'm looking for the effectiveness. Tell me about that.
Well, do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So this here in front of me, just so you know, this is a very big binder of stuff. This here is about 1.5 years worth of calls at one location on the other side of I-85 for Gwinnett County, one location. Within here, I felt like I was back in school. I went ahead and highlighted every time a Peachtree Corners police officer assigned to Peachtree Corners went to go handle long calls on the other side of the interstate. That's a problem. And I think when you talk about quality and zone integrity and being able to respond to those things, I think these are some of the things. This is just one location. I think the heat map. Which one? Which one? Okay. Henry, do you want to talk about that, please? Please.
You go right here.
Introduce yourself.
Can you guys hear me? We're good? All right. My name is Henry Mason. I'm a captain here at the City of Peachtree Corners Marshal's Office. I'm one of the marshals. I'm in a suit right now because I had surgery. And I had surgery on Wednesday. Opened me up and fixed the hiatal hernia, and I'm still here at the meeting today. So it's okay. So the incident that we're talking about is something that somebody related earlier about entering autos. And the last time that it happened was a long time ago. I actually assisted, and how I came about this was an email directly emailed to me by one of the residents off of Scott Mill Run. Are you guys familiar with the area off Bush Road? He called 911, his window was smashed in. Unfortunately, he had no cameras. So at that point, based off my experience in policing, which is just over about to be 10 years, when that happens, you really don't have leads to go off of. So at that point, and I'm not going to name an officer, but he was told, the resident was told that at that point, there was a high probability that it was not going to be followed up with. Told that resident to contact the marshal's office that had more resources to put into it and time, so the resident did that. I received an email in the marshal's general folder, just like anybody else here can email concerns that they have, and started running with it. I actually went out there and realized that his window had been broken in, but yes, he did not have cameras, but there was still about another 100, 200 houses in that road, Scott Mill Run, as it comes from Bush Road all the way to Lou Ivy. Are you guys familiar with that area? Okay, so with me not having to answer 911 calls at this time and the limited resources I have where I don't have the call, I don't have the report in front of me that says this is what happened and this is the time frame and everything else, I just went out there and did the old school police thing of boots on the ground. I went from the very first house of Scotts Mill Run and Bush Road through the neighborhood, every single house, to find video footage of this car and the suspects. That took 2 days to do by myself. I did that, and I obtained great video footage of the vehicle and of the suspects who were holding a firearm in their hand while walking up to the car in case they were challenged by the resident. So at that point, when I did that, I got the information and I realized that the vehicle was this vehicle, and I'm not going to give specifics because obviously it's a case, right? But I'm going to tell you the gist of it. Once we did that, we were able to see that the vehicle was en route in the direction finishing up near the city limits of Norcross. Best way to combat something like this is reach out to Norcross. I reached out to Norcross, and they got lit up that morning too. And by the term lit up means they had about 20 vehicles broken into and multiple guns, multiple items taken from them. Got with that detective, started working it up. I was able to do some offline searches, and I'm just going to tell you police work. Basically, I did background police work. We're able to locate that the vehicle was a rental from Turo. Sound familiar? Maybe the murder at Quick Trip? Okay. Was able to find the location on the car, met with the owner who rented it. We're able to do all the background work. We're able to locate the vehicle who actually has a GPS tracker on it. So guess what we have? The movements of the car everywhere it went. I was able to get that, and then after my 2 days in the residential area, I followed up in Atlanta, 2 days, getting video from the locations where the GPS tracker on the car hit to figure out if we can get a good picture of these suspects to try to identify them and get them arrested. At that point, got the video. I was able to locate the car as it hit in a gas station. off of in East Point. Imagine East Point is about an hour or so away near the airport. Was able to get video of the suspects right after they finished breaking into your cars. Johns Creek that night had about 15 to 17 cars broken into. They went into Gwinnett County over by Sugarloaf Parkway. They went around the whole northern area, Johns Creek, us, Norcross, the other side, as we speak to the other side of Jimmy Carter, and broke into cars there as well. So in total, it was a large amount of cars broken into, guns taken, and at that point, I was able to get a video footage of them at 6 a.m. once they're coming off the highway, coming from breaking in vehicles into our city, Norcross, and everybody else, without masks on, because they were wearing masks. We're able to get video without masks on. We're able to share that information with the city of Norcross. We held a joint meeting talking about working together. We held a joint meeting with Johns Creek, Norcross, and then some of the other jurisdictions around that had crime that same morning from the same crew. And we were able to gather together and distribute the work that was going to be done so nobody did double work. The information was shared in an info share with Gwinnett County Police Department in their info share, and at that point is when the Norcross officer who attended, I wasn't able to, was able to share the case file that I had put together with the detective of Gwinnett County Police Department, and that's where we were able to determine that the same suspects have been part of 500 plus entering autos and about 15 plus stolen vehicles in Gwinnett County that were unsolved at that point, and we're able to use the information we gave to identify the suspects that didn't have a mask on at the gas station from our video, and we're able to get probable cause to arrest these individuals the following week or so down in Atlanta, where one of the suspects was wanted for murder. So there's just a lot more things than just breaking into cars, but that's just the gist of kind of what happened and what my involvement was and my hard work in that case to get it broken open.
And I just want to add, I'll commend you, Henry. Incredible work. Thank you. The reason that is depending on how a city department would be, you would have about a 7-man. In the proposal, it's there, but it's a 7-man. It would be a lieutenant, a sergeant, and about 5 detectives or so, and a crime analyst built into that. The problem is at the city level, you're able to pick up patterns, crime trends or patterns very quickly. The problem is when the organization is very big, again, no fault of their own, it sometimes goes through slower channels, the reports don't get done effectively, and then all the meanwhile, while there's that kind of dead space, if you will, that's going on, the criminal is still out here victimizing people. So the reason technology exists, all these things, is to speed up that process so we can minimize the amount of victims, right? And in this case, there has been many instances in this where sometimes, unfortunately, again, you just heard the past of this person. He was a murder suspect. They were tied to RICO cases. That is who's coming up here in the middle of the night into the community. If you ask me, if you had officers, I know exactly what we would do. We would put officers at those intersections. We would have the cruise lights on. There's studies that have basically interviewed 500 burglars. Why do you hit where you hit? And they're like, well, we drove by, we saw no police, so we hit. And he goes, well, what's up? We drove by, we saw a lot of police, so we said, let's keep going. So there is a lot in just visibility. But if you know these things are going on between 2 in the morning and 6 in the morning, then you should be putting details together. You should be throwing drones up in the air. You should be doing a multitude of things. No fault of their own. They're very busy with things of this nature. Problematic extended stays that have prostitution, have had shootings, stabbings, and all those things. You asked me, I was the major. Guess what? I put a lot of my resources over there too. But I also had a CRT team, and I also sent them into the city a lot to deal with this, because if you don't deal with this on the front end, then you get the big stuff. And it goes all back to the broken windows theory of policing. Address the small things so they don't grow into big things. Thank you.
All right, everybody done? All right, so can everybody hear me? So my question is to you. On your slide, if I remember correctly, it said that we are currently paying $11 million a year to Gwinnett County. Is that correct?
9.4 in property tax. The 11 would be court revenue that's generated by tickets and other citations written
So they're getting
here.
$11 million
About $11
basically
million
for assisting us,
or providing this service
to
to pay
us,
for
Peachtree
it.
Corners. And how much are we paying the marshals?
Well, their total budget is about $800,000.
So we're basically spending $13 million.
$11.8 million.
Okay, 11.8, sorry. All right. We're spending 9.4. let's just say we're spending $10 million to Gwinnett County to come to us to provide a service, correct? It's 10 million, 11 million. If we get our own police department, we still have to pay Gwinnett that $10 million?
No, it would
We
come
get
to
some of that
us.
back.
It would transfer over. Basically, it would come over in another line item and it would go. It would come over in a line item, just like it does in any other city that's had its police department. Your Norcross, your Duluth's, all those property tax come over, and then we use those funds to fund the police department and the services that would go along with them.
All right, so we're going to get some of that money back, so we're still going to be spending $11 million, but we're going to have our own police right here.
That's correct. To call your own and all that stuff.
Right here
yes.
is where?
The city of Peachtree Corners in the city limits.
In the
Yes,
city
ma'am.
limits?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So that was my question I asked you, but you had said, no, we were still going to have to pay them. That's why I
No,
said
no, no,
waited.
no.
So I was
No,
like,
no,
what?
no.
So I thought we were
It
going to be
just
paying
goes from one
22
pot to another pot, essentially.
Okay.
And then it would be used to do specific things for the needs and the desires of the community of Peachtree Corners. What
Okay.
they feel is important at the Peachtree Corners level and not the county level.
Okay, so that was I asked him before when I
Oh,
was just
okay.
sitting there, and he said no, and I was like, what? We're going to be paying $22 million?
Yeah, no,
So that
absolutely
was
not,
my
ma'am.
question.
No,
So,
no, no,
okay.
no. I hope we got clarity of that
They
for you.
would be here.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's good, and they would be right here in our own area, because it seems
Yes.
like our biggest deficiency
Yes, ma'am.
that everyone is saying they have a problem with is the response time from the current Gwinnett County Police.
Correct, because
they are not always here.
That's right. They're stretched
In
thin.
our area.
They're stretched thin, and their priority, if you had to choose between property and life, you're going
I understand.
ethically, you're going to go
I
to the
understand
areas.
all
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
But we are paying them for 70-ish employees, according to that slide,
Yes, ma'am.
and we are going to have 60-ish employees.
Yeah, but you have to divide the precinct, right? So they have total of 74 as a whole precinct covering.
As the whole, not
Yeah,
just
not
dedicated
Peachtree
to us.
Corners, right? If
Okay.
we just sliced it down to half, we'd about 35, 36.
Okay.
We're coming in with 52.
And if we have 52, how many of those are going to be on
On the
duty
road?
at the same time?
Well, in uniform, it would be about probably mid-30. And
So
if you did it, you'd be about 7 to 8 officers per shift.
Okay.
If you do that math, patrolling the city.
Okay. Well, that
And
was-
then, again, I think there's some confusions, like everyone's, this thing about them leaving. Yes, they're going to arrest people, they have to go to the jail. They go
I
to an
understand.
accident, they're going to go to those things. That no one's saying that they're always going to be here,
Right.
but they're never going to go from here to here and stay for hours upon hours and not being visible and doing proactive police work in the city.
Right. So if we are getting an adjustment from them, would it not be less expensive to just have a precinct here in Peachtree Corners for the current Gwinnett County? And then
It's certainly a consideration.
And then we still
We
have all
have a
those other-
small satellite precinct, if you will, as the city stood up at Town Center. They've been given the code, we have big screens to say, hey, feel free to come in here, do your paperwork, heat up your food, do whatever you want. It just hasn't translated for them using it a lot,
It
but
seems like
it
that
has
would be
been
a
offered.
great way to continue on utilizing their services.
Yeah. The only problem is
having them
it's
here.
a physical building, right? But yet, if there's calls for service, they're still going to go. So there's something to be said about having
Right,
a
but
building.
they would be going from here. If we had a problem, they would already be here if they're dedicated to our precinct.
To a certain extent, yes. But if a call for service more serious, they would still have to go over there, yes. I mean, you just split whichever way you want to split it, but yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, ma'am.
I hate, take it off? Thank you, I'm not using this. I hate public speaking, but I want to tell you my experience with the Gwinnett County Police Department. About a month ago, I live alone, and I was at home, and all of a sudden, my alarm went off in my house. Well, I'm freaking out, so I called 911, and they took my information, and I can tell you, within 5 minutes, there were 2 police cars with officers in both cars sitting out in front of my house. They came up to the door, they walked around the house, the exterior of the house to make sure there was nobody breaking in. It was just a fluke with my alarm, but that was my experience. Also, going to work one day this week, I was going south on Peachtree Corner Circle and turned left on Holcomb Bridge. And if any of you are aware of that, there's a dip. And right at the bottom of that dip, there was a horrible car crash with 2 cars. There was a police officer there already, and it had just happened. The ambulance wasn't there. He was the first on the scene. So that's been my experience with the Gwinnett County Police Department.
Hi, my name is Pat Camerling. I've lived in Peachtree Corners for about 35 years. I can never remember the exact number. And I just have an observation. I came here tonight because this was meeting number 2, and I expected to hear new information. I really haven't heard any new information except downgrading the Gwinnett County Police Department. Mr. Mayor, I would really like for these meetings that are informational to be presented from a non-biased perspective. The prejudice of these two people was extremely evident with everything they presented tonight. And that's not fair to the residents of Peachtree Corners. We need fair and factual information presented in a fair and factual way. Thank you.
All right, I think I broke the mic. No, I'm going to give you guys a little bit different perspective as both a resident on the west side by Simpsonwood Park and a business owner on the east side. But first, I want to thank our city manager and our chief marshal for being up here. I think one of the things that we're missing right now is the ability to have respectful dialogue as a country. And there's been some personal attacks on y'all and things like that. I, for one, appreciate y'all getting up here. It is almost 10 o'clock and taking the questions, and some have been less than respectful. So, gentlemen, thank you. I live over by Simpsonwood Park. My business is right on Peachtree Industrial, and it is a tale of two cities, right? We've talked about this city from a north and south side. We have 3 sides. We have east side, west side, and the south side. Over by where I live, we don't need police more. There doesn't need to be any greater presence. I 100% agree. Go over by Peachtree Industrial, right? My business is right on Peachtree Industrial. We've been broken into multiple times. If y'all want to come hang out with me on Sunday evening, I'm usually at work. You can hear the drag racing up and down Northwoods Parkway. About every 3rd Monday when I'm going to work at Medlock Bridge and Peachtree Industrial, you can see where the intersection takeovers happened and all the donuts are and things like that. The gentlemen are correct. The barbarians are at the gate. They're here. And we don't just have to think about the citizens, guys. We get to do a lot of great things in this city because of the businesses that are here and things like that. So if the businesses keep getting attacked, if we lose that, then there's going to be a millage rate on the citizens as well. Because as a business owner, I can tell y'all, I pay a lot to the city. Right? It happens. So there are stakeholders to consider outside of just what's going on in our neighborhood. So I would encourage y'all, right? I'm not here to take sides or things like that, but look at it from all over the city and everybody's perspective. There are multiple stakeholders. Some don't get to vote as business owners, but they're employing hundreds of people in their 50,000 square foot buildings and paying a big chunk of taxes. So just think about that. And again, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Robin. I've lived in Peachtree Corners now for 27 years. I'm Robin. I've lived in Peachtree Corners for 27 years. And I actually thought this meeting was last week. So I actually sent an email to everyone on the city council and Brian. And that gave them a week to answer my questions. I didn't get any. I didn't get any tonight either. Not really. So the money that I'm seeing you present, the $12 million, is in today's dollars. But we have to give Gwinnett County a 3-year notification of this. 4 now? Okay, so now we have 4 years. So that money needs to be extrapolated out to 4 years. So there's an escalation, you have inflation. That money could be $20 to $30 million a year by the time we get there. Okay? The second thing I asked was, we haven't seen any cost of the actual infrastructure build until tonight. You did present a 2.2, which I think is a little low, personally. But you say we have the funds to do that with without going into the citizens. At some point, we may actually have to put up tax money ahead of time to pay for some of that infrastructure in the next 4 years, because you can't build it after Gwinnett County leaves. You got to have it in place before they leave. It has to be there starting day one, when we become the responsibility for that police department. And the other thing I wrote them about was the gap that got brought up of what the services they won't provide as a police department. Right now they're going, oh, well, all that money will come back. But we still have to pay the county for those services. So are we going to have 2 line items on our taxes to still pay for that? You got to prove me wrong on that one, because you haven't presented that at all, of how we're going to pay for those services, such as SWAT, homicide, things like that, that we're not going to cover. That big gap everybody was talking about. So who's paying for that? It's got to come out of somebody's dollars. Maybe it's ours. We may end up with 2 line items at some point. Nobody's presented that we won't. So think about it. That's your money. And the last one was, oh yeah, and then if Gwinnett County, who's one of the best police departments in the state, and maybe the Southeast, and maybe the world, can't staff, what the heck makes us think Peachtree Corners is going to be able to? Because all it's going to do is continue to raise the cost of the salaries, the insurance, the health insurance, all the stuff that it takes to run a company. It's just going to keep going up. So that number they're telling you is just going to keep rising, rising, rising. And yes, it's a one-sided view from up here. There's no Gwinnett County coming in and saying, you know, we also haven't gone out and tried to renegotiate our IGA. And don't tell me you can't, because according to the web, you can. Cities can have their own unique IGA. Read it. So that's not true. So there's some things they're saying that don't really flush out. And I think we need to really think about this. I personally am not for a police department here. I think Gwinnett County does an incredible job. They have one of the best police departments in the world. We already have things where we got lied to. Do we really want another one? Thank you.
Hi. Whoops. I too don't like to speak in public. I wasn't going to speak tonight. So one of the last meetings I came to, I think I was maybe at one in this building, but City Light in 2018. It was my first city council meeting, and I got an earful that meeting. The Carl Vinson Institute had done a study, and they determined that the city light was unconstitutional. And here we are now. We have a city, we have needs, we're growing. And after hearing you all speak tonight, I am definitely for a Peachtree Corners Police Department. I think what may help in communicating with the citizens is informing people of the jurisdiction, the gaps in policy and communication. You know, people are wondering, why is it, you know, you can't enforce this code or that? Well, it's jurisdiction. And so I think to maybe set people at ease more, to let them know, you know, who has jurisdiction. Right now, you know, because of City Light being unconstitutional, we are a city, we still have needs, we still need protection. And so we have to go from where we are now. And your story was very moving. I was present not too long ago when my son started his work here in Peachtree Corners. There was a gathering of car racers underneath the bridge at Peachtree Corners, and I believe an officer had gotten assaulted. You know, street racing is a thing, and we've lost students for years, even before the city of Peachtree Corners. People may know over at the Regal Medlock Cinemas, or whatever they're called up there at State Bridge. When my daughter was young, I used to freak out because there would be all these students there, you know, gathering, 200 students, no parents. And some of these people would race, and some people have had accidents, some people have lost their lives. And, you know, street racing is a thing. Gangs, organized crime rings. And as you were saying, I mean, I think you really put the picture on it well when you talk about it's, you know, it's not just these big things that you think about. It's, you know, little situations striking here and there. To me, what's really important, I think that we have an amazing infrastructure in place. We have drones here, don't we? I think we have, like, this is really cool, the things that we have in this city. Like, you guys have no idea. This is really cool. And I think to be able to have a department, you come in here, grow it, train maybe in other places in the country. But my biggest thing I'd like to see is cross collaboration, you know, between departments, some liaisons, something to fill in the gaps. I don't know much about this. I guess you were talking about Toro or something. But, you know, to be able to have communication and real time, knock these people down, because let me tell you, these people that are committing the crimes, they don't care about the things that you all are talking about right now. They're going to go on doing what they're doing. And I, for one, am for the police department here. However we need to handle it, you know, we are where we are now. I don't think it's a power thing. I think this is about all of us wanting to be safe, wanting, you know, our needs to be met. And so maybe it's a matter of communication. And this is just one last thing I'm going to throw out there for anyone that's called 911 over at the Split. I've been one of those people. The Split is where, you know, the Publix is. I guess it's Holcomb Bridge and Peachtree Parkway area. So just over a little further going south on Peachtree Parkway, people may not realize that when they call 911, there's Norcross Police Department, there's Gwinnett County, there's DeKalb, and sometimes there's a little bit of lag on who you're gonna get. And so that already happens. And I think it would be really cool if we can find a way to kind of bridge the gap on those 911 calls to, you know, help people and also to back you up in the field. So anyway, I'm not much of a speaker. I just want to let you know I'm really excited about what you're trying to do. I don't feel jaded. At first, I was like City Light. I was really annoyed over that way back. My eyes were like, what the heck? They're just going through with this. But now, you know, I see that you're trying to do good things here. I don't think it's a power thing. I think here we are now. Where do we go from here? And I think this is something that could be a really good thing if you just give it a chance. Anyway, thanks.
Actually a very good speaker. My name is Rico Figliolini. I publish Peachtree Corners magazine. I wasn't intending on coming forward. I tend to do a one-on-one podcast. Those are my best things, right? I don't speak too well in public, but what I've learned since I moved here in '95 with a 9-month-old and in-laws is that the city of Peachtree Corners, which wasn't a city back then, is a phenomenal place. It's a place where I brought my family from Brooklyn here for safety, right? I lived in, not the worst part of Brooklyn, but it was when you're young, you think about when you grow up and you think about all the good things that happen, right? It's the best of times when you're young. But when you have kids, you want to bring them up in the right place. Gwinnett County Police, JD, those guys, they do a great job. This has nothing to do with that. This has more to do with I don't want to rent my safety. I want to own my safety. This is a city that's growing. It's a city in the middle of an area that is a pass-through to Johns Creek, Forsyth County, Cherokee, all these other places. This traffic here is phenomenally bad. It's gotten worse. It has nothing to do with the density that's here in Peachtree Corners, because I think we only added, we added this up before. There's only 800 units that are actually live out of the rezonings that have been done since the city started, okay? So there's still some more apartments to be coming that were already approved several years ago. This has more to do with the fact that the county will be past 1 million people, that the police that I want need to be owned by the city to be responsible for its own citizens here. So I'm not going to talk about facts. I'm not going to talk about whether it's going to cost 9 million, 11 million, 10 million. It doesn't matter. You know, $1 million here and there. How big is our budget right now? The city budget? 50? $50 million. I'm not saying it's a rounding figure, that $1 million, but please, I mean, you know, if we're talking about the safety that we should be controlling, us citizens here, then we should be controlling it. You know, the city, when it got formed, I was not against it. Now, did I believe in city light? I thought, to heck, that's not what this is going to end up being. But it doesn't matter. I like what the city has done. We report on it. I've done, I think the publication's been out 7 years now. With the interviews that we've done, I know every aspect of this city. I don't know everything, but most of it. And I think the city has done a terrific job in almost everything that they've done. I can't point out anything bad. Now, can I point out maybe bad-looking apartments? I would condition them differently, maybe, okay? But, you know, that's me. But I think that as a city, I think they've done a great job. Same way Gwinnett County does a great job with its parks and recreation, with its police force, with Gwinnett libraries. It's just unbelievable. This is a great place to live. I just don't want to rent my safety. I want to own it. And you all should be feeling that same way. That's what I got to say.
Good evening. I'm Richard Chambers, and I've been a Peachtree Station resident for 43 years. I think that Peachtree Corners is a wonderful, vibrant, exciting place to live. I think the Gwinnett County Police Department have done an excellent job. I think our mayor and these gentlemen have done an excellent job. I'm concerned about the fact that right now, every municipality surrounding Peachtree Corners has its own police department. We are an island in the middle of all these other cities around us that have their own police departments, which means when somebody from East Point steals a car and comes up here, we're their first pick. For us to get, if we decide to get our own police department, it takes 4 years to work out the logistics with Gwinnett County. I don't think that came up earlier tonight. So we've got to start looking ahead of now. Yes, we're safe, pretty safe now. But I think the world is getting a little bit more dangerous every day. And if you don't believe that, maybe you need to start looking at more news articles. And I'm more interested in having more police officers in our area as prevention. I would rather them not have to be time filling out police reports after the fact. I want them to be proud of the fact that they're not having to fill out any police reports. I look at it as driving down Peachtree Industrial Boulevard, and I'm going 65 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone, and everybody's all of a sudden kind of bunched up. And I look ahead of that, and here's a Gwinnett County police car ahead of everybody, and then he pulls off the exit, and everybody speeds up to 75. The police presence makes a difference. And the Gwinnett County Police have their responsibility for a huge area. if we had our own police department here, I just feel like we would have a more cohesive group, and every one of the police officers would have such a smaller area to protect, and we would get to know each other. I grew up in Decatur, Georgia. Policemen came to our school, grammar school, about every quarter. We got to know the police officers by name, and they got to know us by what gum we chewed almost. But I want the police presence here ahead of the crime so that the crime does not come here. Again, you gentlemen have done an excellent job. You continue to do it. You're just spread too thin, and we're in an area where y'all have to cover us and more problem areas. So, hey, you know, some crooks are over, they see something's happened over on the other side of 85. Man, now's the time to go to Peachtree Corners, because all the police that cover this area are over there. But with our own police department, they're pretty much staying here. And yes, we'll get additional help from the county for homicide and for the other crimes. That's not a big deal. A few months ago, I saw a real estate comment. At the time in Peachtree Corners, there was not a single house for sale, single family residence for sale, under $525,000. Do you think we can't afford an extra $20, $30, $40, $50 a month to protect our own investment? Gwinnett County has done an excellent job, but again, they're just spread too thin. I mean, somebody driving down the road and they see a sign on their house, a crook, you know, protected by one security agency. Next house, another protected, another one protected. Oh, there's 3 houses in a row. They don't have stickers on their house. Let's go rob that house. If we have our own police department here, the same as all the municipalities around us, we will then form a huge don't come around us pact. We presently live in what's called the Platinum Triangle, between 485 and 285. We have a rich investment here. Let's protect it with more officers that stay in our area. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see a lot of you all again from the first meeting. My name is Rachel Nicky, and I am your Gwinnett County Outreach Manager. I just wanted to make sure everyone had an opportunity to speak. I'm just here to share about all the great things that are available to you coming up. So we have the Public Safety Fall Festival coming up next Saturday at Coolray Field. Everyone's welcome from 10 to 2. Some crime prevention programs that are available that are coming up in your area. We have our active violence situation coming up for you all is October 13th at West Precinct. You can register for that active violence presentation on the Gwinnett County website. We have firearm safety training to residents every month available to all residents here in Gwinnett County. We've had a backlog of residents that are interested in our Women's Basic Self-Defense class. That is opening up October 27th to the 30th from 6 to 9. So you guys have a good night.
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Steve Shaw. I'm the Deputy Chief of the Gwinnett County Police Department. That's the #2 position. I currently manage the Operations Bureau, which includes our Uniform Division, our Special Operations Divisions, which is SWAT, K-9 Aviation, EOD, or HDU as it's called now, and as well as our Criminal Investigations Division. A little about me, I've lived in Peachtree Corners for 30 years. I live down off East Jones Bridge. I've raised my family here, so I'm completely invested in this community. The priority are by and large through my career, I have worked at many different precincts, including West Precinct. I was in criminal investigations with Chief Restrepo for a number of years. And so I guess for me is if you have questions about the police department, and I didn't want to hijack this meeting, this is not about us, it's about the city explaining their reason for exploring or this journey that Brian is talking about. I find it easy to pull data points that benefit you. So if you take 4 log sheets from 365 days a year, I obviously have challenges with their staffing levels. When you're talking about 30 officers, 6 to 7 officers on the scene for a night, that doesn't include our officers that get pregnant, that get sick, that get hurt, that take vacation, that have court, that go to training. So, you know, obviously I have questions about the staffing as a Peachtree Corner resident. My knowledge in 28 years of policing tells me that there's still some work to do on their behalf, and they seem very eager to do that. But I'll be glad to answer any questions that you guys have. We will be hosting a town hall as a police department coming October at Peachtree Corners Baptist Church. We'll get that out there as soon as we do that. And that is just not to degrade or diminish what the city is doing here. More or less, it is for us to demonstrate who we are, what our organization does, the hundreds and hundreds of arrests we make. Congratulations on yours, Mr. Mesa. But we do a very, very good job of drilling down on crime. A lot of the operations that he's talking about, a lot of the assets that we bring to bear, the surge capacity that I think was mentioned here. We had an active shooter call on Technology Parkway. We had 70 officers on scene within about 7 or 8 minutes, I believe it was. So I'll be glad to answer questions. My intent here and our presence here is not to hijack this meeting. It was because we are invested in this community and we wanted to be a part of this journey that they're talking about. Ms. Harris. Sure. So our computer-aided dispatch program, that is not something owned by the police department, it's owned by the county. It was the county that denied them access to that, although I continue to see in their I guess, information that they put out that it was the Gwinnett County Police that denied that. We did not deny that. The county government owns that platform. They are the ones that made that decision. In terms of our computer-aided dispatch, no other marshals program in the county. There's a Beaufort Marshal, Berkeley Lake Marshal. They don't have access to that. There are city agencies. They don't have access to it. So whereas the marshals didn't have access for it before, they don't have access to it now. Once they become a police department, they still won't have access to it. In terms of our records, yes, I believe the last count for this year was 96 open records requests filed by these marshals that resulted in about 6,000 pages of information that my inspections unit has to pull. No other organization in this county has access to our reports. There's a reason for that. We deal with child sex crimes where we list the ages of victims, suspects, information. Our officers are trained in our CJIS data, which is criminal justice and security information. They sign agreements that if they release that information, they go to jail. They don't sign those same agreements. We are not going to provide privileged information to either marshals or other police departments without an ask. I know there was a period that Chief Restrepo was talking about, we used to hand that over. But this is the only marshals program in the county that provides that many open records requests to us, which is basically burying our inspections unit. So at some point, there was a decision made to flip that switch because it was becoming kind of excessive. So that's the answer to that. Even if they stand up this police department, if they're successful in doing what they're exploring, that access to CAD, that access to our open or our records management system will not change. They're not going to obtain that. So if it's an obstruction now, it's going to continue to be an obstruction then.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to provide clarity. When we started up the marshal's office, we were very deliberate in how we were going to grab things. So I basically mimicked Lilburn Police Department. The Lilburn Police Department has access to CAD, Gwinnett County Police. They dispatch for them, right? We did. We got Axon cameras to make sure that we could share our body cam. I mean, there was a lot of thought process to make sure that those things were going to be seamless. And they came at a price. Axon, very high level. The county police has them. A lot of other cities. Some smaller cities go another route because it is kind of expensive. But we knew we truly wanted to be the force multiplier and do those things. So we wanted to make sure, why don't we mimic Lilburn, and we'll do exactly what Lilburn does, because Lilburn is the only police department in Gwinnett County that actually Gwinnett County dispatches for. And if we go forward, if they decide to, they're saying, what if, we would ask the same. Because most people don't know. When you call 911 in Gwinnett County, it goes through Gwinnett County. When I talk to other agencies, they can't wrap their head around that. When you call 911, you would like for it to go directly to where there's a person that could get you help on the other line. If it goes into Gwinnett County, they have to, several seconds pass by. I'll give you a scenario. Someone calls in Spanish, I need help. Hold, need to get a translator. They get the translator. Then from there they go, hey, do you need some help in Spanish? Yes, what's your location? Oh, that's not Gwinnett, call Norcross. Then the whole process starts over, right? Your cities like Johns Creek, Brookhaven, when they call 911, it goes right into the dispatch center and gets dispatched right away. Anyone would want a 911 call to go to directly as fast as it possibly can. So when we stood up the marshal's office, we were very deliberate. We said, hey, let's just do it like Lilburn, because they do it for Lilburn. And as far as criminal, I suppose. Again, I was trying to deal with this when I worked for them, and then I retired, and then I moved on, and I came over here to work with the city of Peachtree Corners. Because I'll be honest with you, when I was the precinct major at Peachtree Corners, they were super vested in keeping this community safe. So much that there was 2 times where they asked me to leave, and I said, I don't want to leave. Please leave me in Peachtree Corners. I have unfinished business to do. This is the right thing. The city is doing a lot of great things when it comes to crime-fighting technologies and doing state-of-the-art things, and I wanted to be a part of it. I've done all my research and schooling and all that has been specifically on policing technologies. No, I just say because it's important. I think people should know that when you call 911, there's different things, right? Okay, so Sandy Springs, correct, right. But as far as CJIS information, I call to 911. We have a written agreement. I could call 911 right now and say, hey, this is Chief Marshal Restrepo with Gwinnett. Can you run this tag for me? They'll run me the tag. I said, hey, I need criminal history. Then they trust me for all that. Why can't we be trusted to have CAD? They trust the Lilburn Police Department to do all that, and they provide it to them. So I guess I have no earthly idea, man. That's something that you have to understand. But again, I will agree with Shaw. He said it had to go up levels of government, which I find difficult, because when I conducted research for my dissertation, I interviewed people from state level, county level, elected officials, appointed officials, and they all said we should be sharing information. The trend in law enforcement, and I'll go back, I'll take you one back. Okay, but I think a point should be made. I'll just say 9/11 happened because people weren't sharing information, right? The same thing can be translated to today in crime. And so, right. But they could turn it on, man. It doesn't have to go. There's a program right now called Fuses. Everyone has it. They just need to turn it on, and when a 911 call comes into their system, we would see it. So again, that's going up. It has to go up further, but that's so simple. There's technology that could make this so seamless and get turned on tomorrow. So maybe that's a better question to be suited for Gwinnett County government. And yes. Well, I don't believe so, because we'll be online with all the surrounding cities, like I think the other gentleman said, and we would be sharing that information. I could pick up my phone right now and see 80,000 cameras in the city of Atlanta. So when we have it here, I could track them all the way down there. Atlanta chooses to share with us, and we've committed cases Dunwoody shares with us. All these cities shares with us. That's the key to law enforcement and crushing crime. I mean, I'm open to anything. I do my job to protect people. I don't try to get caught up in all the government things that go on, ma'am.
Peachtree Corners, that survey or the link to go online and fill out the survey so you get an appropriate number. This is ridiculous. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
I have a question. I've had to use the emergency services twice, and I live in Peachtree Forest, which is Jay Alley's Spalding area. And so the fire department, is right there on Spalding, very close. And I've had really good response. If we have our own police force, and I'm trying to remember the two scenarios. I know there was a fire truck, I know there was an ambulance, I believe there was a police car. So will that still happen if we have our own police force?
Yeah, absolutely. We could just look down the road. Norcross shows up to accident with injuries and the fire department's there. None of that changes. They all kind of train together. They do all that. Nothing. That's seamless. That if the fire department is required on scene, the officer would come up. If they have to whisk that person away, then the officer has to kind of go, make sure they get all the information to get the report and all those different things. So no, none of that would change. That whether you're a city department, county department, it's all the same.
So my dad is so you guys can hear me in the back. My dad is a sheriff's deputy for Rockdale County. He's been there well over a decade. I grew up in Conyers, Georgia. Whenever there's an extreme incident within the city parameters, Rockdale shows up to help out. Would that not be the case here?
If it's a quality of life issue, absolutely. Somebody mentioned earlier, well, if we have a homicide, we'll just call Gwinnett. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The current SDS agreement that is in place with those other cities that they talk about forbids the Gwinnett County Police Department from providing any service outside of 911, SWAT, HDU, which is our EOD unit, and emergency management. So it's not a situation is that if you have a homicide, like the Quick Trip murder occurred with Mr. Coleman over here, you can't just call Gwinnett County and say, hey, can you send your CSI? Can you send your Gwinnett County Police Department homicide detectives? That's not how it works. If they don't have the capacity to handle that, they call a state agency, which is the GBI. Their response times can go from 2 to 6 hours. Their crime scene processing can go to that length too. Here's the challenge for me as a Peachtree Corner resident, as a police officer, is that you have a group of individuals that are coming into this neighborhood, this jurisdiction, that don't live here, that they're not invested here, that regardless of the nature of the crime or the severity of the crime, is the effort they are putting into this will be very different from the effort that Chief Restrepo is going to put into it, and very different from the effort that I put into it. So, but the ultimate reliance on other organizations to do the things that they can't do is, I think, as a resident, what is going to be missed here. With 60 officers, which I think was 30 sworn, is that right, Chief? 32, 34 sworn officers. When you talk about gang investigations and drugs and the behavioral health unit, crime scene, our real-time crime center, all of these little support services will not be a part of the services that you will get if you stand up your own police department. He's not wrong. They do have task forces at work. And I think he gave a great example of the Gwinnett County Task Force that has agencies from each city that worked a really, really big case and pulled a bunch of fentanyl. They're not all coming to Peachtree Corners every day. They are working cases in Berkeley Lake, working cases in Duluth, Lawrenceville, Snellville, and so forth. And then for the other gentleman, Major Griffin actually does work in Norcross, not in Lawrenceville. I think that was one of the other things that had come up.
So is there not a way to create a hybrid system where Peachtree Corners can have their own police force to have the boots on the ground to be present in the neighborhoods for low-scale criminal activity, just to be present, but also have the support of Gwinnett County for everything. Like, can we not work together on that?
And that's a great point. I think what you're talking about is an a la
Peachtree
carte.
Corners having more coverage.
That's a great point. And I think that would be a conversation with city leadership and Gwinnett County government to sit down at the table and say, we would like to see this, this, and this occur within the city limits. If we do stand up a police department, how much would it cost for us to get your homicide, your crime scene investigators, your aviation assets, and so forth? And so I do think that is a conversation that the city manager and the city council could probably tee up. I can't guarantee you that the counties are going to agree to that, but I do think it's a step in the right direction.
I'll go back, and again, I'm a big data guy, historical guy. If we just look at Norcross, Lawrenceville, they sometimes have, obviously, unfortunate, they have homicides. They have trained detectives, person detectives that handle that. They have crime scenes that handle that. If they need some additional resources, and you'll see, and I'll encourage you, if you go to the presentation, it breaks down every specialized unit, service, or whatever, who that goes to. So we had Lawrenceville on there, I think we had Lilburn, Swanee, and all them, and it breaks down, hey, if they need crime scene, they handle internally. If it's this, they use the district attorney's office and this person. If it's a gun crime and they got to do ballistics, they'll use the GBI. And it all different, right? Some have been an agency for 200 years, some have been an agency for 25 years. And so during that time, just like Gwinnett, you grow upon that structure. And so you have those contacts and you do those things. So I say that in that it's not really reinventing the wheel. It's essentially looking at all these other successful agencies, as a gentleman said, that surround us and have been doing it for years and incorporating a lot of what they've done.
And just since we're going to talk about history, is that my understanding is that every city police department in the county of Gwinnett were started prior to the Gwinnett County Police Department. A lot of these ones that we're talking about in Tucker, in DeKalb, Johns Creek, the DeKalb County Police Department and the Fulton County Police Department had some significant institutional issues, and that's why all those cities moved in that direction. I don't believe, unless I'm wrong, that we have not stood up a city police department in Gwinnett County since our existence. Not to say that it shouldn't happen, I'm just telling you historically with what they're putting up there, it's a bunch of organizations that have existed well before us, and the ones that are doing so well and spending that money are all cities outside of this county.
I mean, that shows the innovation and the culture and the things that those cities are able to do. I mean, I think that points that out clearly. The other agents that have started up in the other cities. I'll make a point, and again, I'm big into technology, but you could look at an agency that's 10 minutes south of us, the city of Brookhaven. They are doing amazing things. They have a drone as first responder program. They have several hubs on the field. If you call 911, it grabs your immediate rapid SOS, and that drone takes off and starts going to the location. Before the officers even get there, they're seeing everything that's going on. You want to keep officers safe, you want to keep citizens safe, know what's going on even before you get to the call. Same thing with residents. It all helps. There's actually 20%, they've done some studies on these programs, and you save 20%. Instead of blue lights and cars rushing through cities getting to a call, they put the drone up and go, hey, they just left. So you're not endangering the officers, you're not endangering the public. What a win, right? Because you have this technology. Our job is to de-escalate and save lives. That's at the end of the day, when you really bear down the simplicity of what you expect out of the police in an emergency situation, that's what you expect. Brookhaven, they're pioneers, they really are, but they don't have all the tech. This past week, I just met with a bunch of Israeli companies. Mind-blowing the technology they have. These are things that we could institute quickly and agilely as a city, but if you try to take that on a county level, it's going to take a long time to institute those things. I want us to serve as the ambassadors of all policing technologies for others to come, and we could share that and break this silo. Frankly, the problem is there's a lot of silo policing, and that doesn't equate to help people at all. The people that we're entrusted to keep safe.
And I'll speak to that. We are starting a drone first responder program at at North Precinct, which is the Mall of Georgia area. I love the fact that you have a 13 square mile footprint in the city, and you could probably put a drone anywhere within about 2 to 3 minutes. Gwinnett County is 437 square miles, over 1 million people. And I believe that was some of the stats that they put up, standing them up next to cities, was the entire county's stats. What you need to be concerned is what are the stats in Peachtree Corners and what do the crime rates look like in Peachtree Corners. I understand we get a lot of work over on the other side of the precinct. Major Griffin will attest to his, I believe it's a little more than 70 officers you have. Is that accurate? 74. So, and our police department is currently at 759, not 650 or whatever was said earlier. So we are slowly making progress, but you have to recognize every industry in law enforcement took a really heavy hit in 2020. 2021, for national tragedies that have occurred across the country, we lost 197 officers in 2020. 197. Slowly making progress as we get back up. But the thing about our organization, and Eddie will attest to this, we don't ever feel sorry for ourselves. We have always run a very lean department. And when you talk about being Triarch certified, which is one of 37 agencies in the world, not the country, the world that have that certification, that doesn't happen by accident. So I'm not here to dispel what they're doing. I appreciate what they're doing. I think that what they're looking for is control of that police department, and I'll be the first to tell you, right now, they don't have it. They don't have it with us. We answer to a different authority than the city council and Mr. Johnson, and so what they're seeking is not disingenuous. They are looking to be able to control their law enforcement assets, and I totally get that. But I also think that they need to demonstrate a need for that.
Any more
Anything
questions,
else?
or anybody need clarity on anything? Oh, you want to come back up, ma'am? Okay, come on, if you'd want to. Oh, no, we ended, or we want to give her the opportunity? I don't know. If you have something, come on, man. Actually, you said you weren't a good public speaker, but I think you're a pretty decent one, for sure.
So with asking for clarity, for demonstrating the need, I guess, for police in this area, City Light is the one that comes to mind with me. And so, sorry, because we're not, well, we were a City Light, but I guess we're not now. So it does create some issues, doesn't it, as far as, you know, who has accountability and that sort of thing. So I think, you know, since we're not a City Light, supposedly, like, you know, City Light, I think meant that we wouldn't have our own police department, but, you know, we are a city, or I don't know what we are, I'm trying to figure it out. But nevertheless, we do need protection when things arise. And whether we need it now or in the future, look at our proximity and look at the traffic that comes through here. And it doesn't have to happen in Peachtree Corners for there to be a need, because you have people passing through, you know, to these other localities nearby. So I think that is really important. But I think that the thing that maybe residents are wanting to know is, you know, with demonstrating the need for a police department, I think it's about communicating, you know, this, if we're not a City Light, but then, you know, who can respond and who has jurisdiction. I think that needs to be clarified, and that might maybe break down the barriers to communication a little bit, maybe. Anyway, thank you.
Anybody else have anything? If not, look, I appreciate you coming to this meeting. I appreciate you staying. Hold on. Appreciate you staying as long as you did. It speaks well for how much, you know, importance you put on something like this. So I appreciate it. More to follow, as you know. This is a process, and tonight was just one of those. So we learned some things. Hopefully you did too. So just keep your ear to the ground on more. So thanks, and have a good evening.